Are you a brewhead? I'm a brewhead. Are you a brewhead? I'm a brewhead. Y'all are brewheads? Yeah, we brewheads. So pour a glass of craft beer, we can do this. Yeah.
What's good, y'all? This is Cee, Certified Brewhead, and welcome to episode 124 of Beer Knowledge, the podcast Adjunct series. We are back again, ladies and gentlemen, with another banger. As always, they are never short of bangers over here. I'm excited for this one. This is a brewery I've been hearing a bunch about over the last few years, and I'm super keen to hear the whole story and get into the brews. So, as always, though, folks, you know the vibes. Before that, we are proudly brought to you this week once again by the good folks at Manscaped. Let's give them some applause right there. There we go. So, spring has sprung technically as the time of recording a day or two ago, and our friends at Manscaped have the best tools for some spring cleaning. They've already helped you tidy up the nooks and crannies of your body's basement, but this year Manscaped can help you get the perfect presentation on that beautiful face with the new Beard Hedger Pro Kit. Make sure you look your best this spring by using the code BAOS, and you get 20% off and free shipping at manscaped.com. So, beards. I would say a lot of people who listen to craft beer podcasts and drink craft beer either have a beard or know someone with a beard. For some reason, it seems to be quite the trend. So this could be helpful for you. It's time to tame your mane with the Beard Hedger Pro Kit. The sun is peeking back out a little bit, which means you have to show your face in the daylight again. So use the kit to make sure your scruff looks award-winning, whether you got glorious beard flow or some smooth, sleek cheeks. The kit starts off with the Beard Hedger, a waterproof, cordless trimmer with a rotary wheel that gives you 20 hair cutting lengths with one guard, so no more messy drawers full of add-ons. Very handy. It also comes with titanium T-coated blades that are tough on hair but smooth on your face, leading to single stroke efficiency that brings satisfaction one stroke at a time. The Beard Hedger is a high-tech piece of art in a travel-sized package with a long-lasting battery, universal charging, and a strong motor. And it feels wicked. It's got these little, angled edges that just make it really easy to hold. Same as the actual Manscaped lawnmower. See, next, the kit has a liquid goods to make you feel good. Starting with the beard shampoo and conditioner. You can't treat your beard like you treat your pubes. That's why the kit has a special shampoo and conditioner especially designed to moisturize, reduce ingrown hair, and replenish your beard's natural oils and promote beard health, which is this stuff right here. Boom. The Pro Kit also has Manscaped's beard oil. I keep getting lost in here. I think I need a teleprompter for this. The nutrient infused oil relieves dryness both on the beard and the skin beneath while adding a little shimmer and shine to liven up the look. Big fan of beard oil. Cap it up with the beard balm, a pomade that shapes, styles, and moisturizes, bringing the amazing scent of fresh eucalyptus straight from my homeland. Rosemary and lavender essential oils. Not to mention the Beard Hedger Pro Kit also comes with 3 free gifts: a beard brush, comb, and scissors to ensure your beard is ready to impress. The actual brush is my fave. I always say it looks like a shoe cleaning brush. Feels great on the beard. Kind of like itches your skin at the same time, or scratches. In a good way. Save 20% off and get free shipping with the code BAOS at manscaped.com. I can't even talk, at manscaped.com. That's BAOS for 20% off and free shipping at manscaped.com. Focus on the face and use the Beard Hedger Pro Kit for the cleanest look in the game. So it's time for the pod, ladies and gentlemen. All the way from London, Ontario, we have the legend, Justin from Storm State, and of course, Nate from NathanDoesBeer in the building. Boys, how we doing? Welcome.
Thanks for having me on.
Welcome.
It's a pleasure. It's a bit ridiculous. So, these guys who write these ads, man, I love it. It's a good job, I imagine. They're pretty crazy.
Well, it's definitely not short on wordplay.
Not at all.
No, I mean, that's what ChatGPT is all about these days, right?
Yeah. I kind of feel like we're at the point now where you can already tell if ChatGPT sort of done it. I feel like it's actually, but now there's 4 just released the other day, didn't it? So maybe it's elevated. I just feel like it got a little played out quick. Did you guys notice that?
Maybe, and then Google just released Bard. That's their version of it.
Have you tried it?
No, I haven't. No,
I heard about it. I didn't know it was out. Interesting. So it's going to be a fight of the AI programs at this point. It's fun, but it's also terrifying.
Oh, definitely.
A little bit, yep.
Just a little bit. So, Justin, thanks again for hanging out, man. been hearing a lot about you guys over the last little while, so very excited to get into some brews and hear the whole story. So we've mapped out a fantastic lineup of beers tonight. Tell us what we're starting with.
So tonight, what we're starting off with, I guess what we consider our house pale ale. This is Sunburst. We've been brewing this since, I guess, our first year. It is one of the earlier, hazier style beers in the province.
Okay.
Back when restaurants didn't understand that a beer should be hazy.
It's not a flaw.
Yeah. We overfill our cans, so you'll see that there's quite a bit of that.
There was a good bit of spray there.
I love it.
Yeah. Makes for a good photo op whenever you're opening it.
Right?
It does, and if you're shooting video too, if you happen to catch like a good moment of that can crack with a nice little spray there, it's a nice effect.
Oh, you learn a lot of tricks with that. You know, like crushing the can slightly with your thumb that's behind the can so people don't see it.
What do you
learn the tips and tricks?
I like that. I love it. I'm here for it. So when did this one first come out, would you say?
This was our first brew. We actually had a yeast and we messed up that yeast. And so we borrowed some yeast from our good friends at Anderson's. And so we called it a different name, same recipe, but because of the yeast, it turned out a bit more West Coasty. It was clear.
Mm-hmm.
We finally got our yeast in and we've been doing it ever since month 2.
Wow.
So it's just, it's had a couple different changes to it. Change from flaked oats to malted oats, back to flaked oats, malted wheat to flaked wheat, and then the percentages have been changed up and down, stuff like that. We changed a couple of the hops in the dry hop, and we've changed a couple of the hops in timings of them in a boil. But it sounds like we changed the whole thing except for the name. But I think that we just changed it to make it a better beer.
Here for it.
Essentially, we make this beer it's a 5.5% crusher is what we want this beer to be.
It's this sounds glorious. So, Nate, whenever he's ready,
I'm ready.
You ready? We always get excited with the talking and the content creation, and then we wait too long to sip it, and everyone's thirsty. Boys,
cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Cheers.
That is delightful. Exactly as you described. What are the hops in this current version, man?
We use the cheater hops in it. So Citra, Mosaic, and Simcoe are used in the dry hop. And we don't add anything in the boil, but in the whirlpool we add Columbus.
Mosaic.
So, did you call those the cheater hops?
Yep. Because no matter what you throw them into, it's going to taste good.
Never go
That's
wrong.
That's a good point. It's a good point.
Yeah. It's got a wicked body, man, for 5.4, which is fantastic.
Yeah, it sure does.
Yeah. So, I mean, like this beer, we intended this to be like a mainstay and we always wanted to have it. And it was, 30% of sales, and it's just been increasing. It now makes up about 65% of our sales.
Wow.
Which is a scary thing in itself. But I think that people love pale ales. London is a big pale ale city. They're not an IPA city. They're not a double IPA city, but we like our pale ales.
Interesting. Why do you think that's coming from? Because that's a really interesting observation.
I think that that's a transition from drinking 50.
I mean, that's fair. So then London just was a big 50 city?
Oh, I mean, Labatt's is in town.
Excuse my ignorance. Okay.
Yeah, so Labatt's is like one of the main Labatt is here in London. It's one of the big stores of the city. We have a lot of the people that work there come by and have beers at our spot because we're a 2-minute drive away or a 5-minute walk. And so I think that this is a good transition point from drinking the lagers, drinking the 50, drinking the Pilsner. And it's just a very easy drinking beer.
Yeah, this is fantastic, dude. It's it's going down crazy. And the body to bring that back up again, just that body is like, I think even like the biggest differentiator, like it's really tough to get like a 5 point. Like if I drank this blind, I wouldn't have picked 5.4 for sure. As far as
I mean, we are looking at about 50% of the grains are high protein grains, so wheat and oats.
And that's really
and so that helps. It helps a lot with keeping the body there. We don't stop attenuation, so we don't halt fermentation because we do want it to be really drinkable. We don't want it to be sickly sweet. I mean, that I like that in some beers. Some of the IPAs that are like Other Half and whatnot, they have that in a lot of their IPAs, and that's a fantastic thing to be drinking. But I want you to drink 6 of these. I don't want you to drink one and you can't drink anymore.
I can absolutely see that with this one. It's light enough. Like it's super interesting because the body is crazy, but it's light enough that I can foresee drinking numerous of these without feeling full, which is obviously a large side effect of a lot of New England's because of probably those high protein ingredients. But it's got the nice light citrusy vibe to it is probably the main thing I'm getting here. So it's really like, and like you mentioned as well about the sweetness, it's not overly sweet. So I guess that's, like you said, bringing it back to that sort of dryness so that you're able to come back for another sip. And it makes you,
and because it is so dry, sorry I interrupted you there. Because it is so dry, it makes you want to have another sip. One of the next beers we're going to be having, that is a main reason of that beer is we want you to drink multiple of it. But this beer here, we want you to share this with friends. I want this to be the beer of the city.
I love that.
I like that.
That's actually almost a good podcast name, episode name right there. Beer of the City.
Yeah.
I love that. Dude, that's awesome. So I want to get into the story. Even just before we get to the story, I want to almost come back to the London being a pale ale city because that's fascinating to me. I'm from Melbourne, Australia, and what I noticed, I got into beer properly in Canada. And going back, I've only been back 3 times in like 12 and a half years. And I noticed the beer scene changed significantly every time, like for the better. Like I feel like it grew exponentially every trip, which was about a year or so between each one. And one thing I noticed there is the first trip, they were all pale ales and golden ales being a pretty strange one. And then I felt like every trip I was like the next trip, they were kind of like haze was being introduced. So there was a few early, New England IPAs and, pales were maybe slightly getting ramped up, or XPAs were the popular thing. Then the year after it changed again, I'm seeing more double IPAs around and a lot more haze and, lactose sours and things like that. So I never heard of another place that it was like, oh, this city or this region is big on this style. So, and I've definitely never heard that about London. So you're saying that because Labatt's in town, people are 50 people. And the reason I didn't know that is that I lived in Montreal for a decade and 50 was the thing out there, but I never really hear people talk about it out here. It's always out there. Was not aware. I
find that if you're out, when you live in London, I'm not originally from London. I'm originally from PEI. Okay. Everybody in London talks about 50. Once you get outside of the city, people don't talk about it, or they talk about it as if it was the thing back in the day. Right. Whereas here, people still talk about it as if it's a present thing.
Interesting. Is it?
You do. I think you do hear. I think you're right from the general public that it's not that people do absolutely generally talk about it as a back in the day kind of thing. The only exception to that, I would say, is that brewers will talk about 50. If we go back to back before I was the co-host and Cee and Scott used to do the lightning round when they would say what's your guilty pleasure beer? 50. Would that be accurate to say that 50 was a really, really common answer?
Probably the most common answer.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's we still drink it.
Yeah,
it's delicious.
It's actually probably one of the best macros. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's just got flavor, right?
And
It does.
That's what's missing in a lot of the other ones. So I think it's probably why it appealed to a lot of people, where it's sort of still a brand they're familiar with, whilst having more flavor than probably what they're, what the other offerings have.
Yeah.
So how did that, and I guess I can see it now once you said the more flavor thing, how did that, do you think, lead to London being a pale ale city? And I'd love to hear other examples of sort of how you sort of put that together. I imagine just other, breweries.
I think, well, so like no matter what pale ale we make, it is always our best seller. If we make an IPA, it's going to be 4. It's going to be 5. But if we make a pale ale, it's going to be number 1. It's going to be number 2. Doesn't matter how many pale ales we have on the board. Those are always the top sellers. So it's just, that's our experience that we've seen. And I mean, if you talk to some of the other brewers, craft brewers in the city, that's what they've been finding as well. They brew IPAs because, and it's the same with us, because we want to get our name known in other locations in Ontario. So that's, I mean, also we like drinking IPAs, so it's kind of a biased point right there. But like also too is like London is also an interesting town in the sense of, so we brew an Irish red, and I can go through a batch of that a month.
Wow.
So that's 1,500 liters. It's not that big of a batch, but 1,500 liters is still 3,500 cans. And I'll go through that a month. But if I were to ship that off to Toronto, like good luck moving that in a year.
Right.
Interesting. So London
Right?
seems to have pretty unique tastes in comparison to other regions in the province.
Yeah, and I think that that's why London has been known as a test city, just because we are such an interesting microcosm. If it works here, it'll work anywhere.
So some breweries drop beer specifically in London just to see what's going on?
Not necessarily beers, but things. So like the Tim Hortons Dark Roast, that was first trialed in London. There was something that McDonald's was doing, and they first trialed that in London. Those organizations, they always do their first test batch, and they won't even announce it that's a test batch. It's just, oh, you think this is happening everywhere, but it ends up that it's only happening here in London.
No way.
How about
Interesting.
that?
So there's London is a city, there's a city in Australia, and there's a city in the US. I forget which ones they are, but Under the Influence, a podcast on CBC, had a really good episode on test cities.
No shit. That's so fascinating. So they're just like cities or just things get tested first because they know that the population is interested in new things.
No, that is not necessarily the case.
Okay.
It's that we are a good test city to see if a city, how could I phrase this? We are a city of 500,000 people, but we still have a very strong rural root.
Okay.
I live 2 minutes from downtown, 15 minutes if I walk. I can drive 10 minutes and I'm in the country.
Gotcha.
Right? And so the makeup of this city is very unique in that sense. And so it's a very good test demographic for that.
Right. So you get a bit of everyone. You get the city folk, and then people who've, went to university there, maybe from Toronto or from elsewhere, some from a big city. I've been to London a bunch of times, so I know it's, looks like Hamilton downtown. There's like, big buildings and all that.
Mm-hmm.
But then
we have Western, which is one of the biggest universities in the country.
Wow.
Which draws in people internationally and draws in people from Toronto, draws in people from the States, you know what I mean?
Gotcha.
We have huge manufacturing. We're close to, we are our own city. We're also almost a sleeper city because you have Toyota and GM and Ford have factories not that far. You have a food manufacturing. It's an interesting place.
I feel like this is NPR right here. I'm learning shit. This is awesome. Loving this, boys.
And don't believe half what I say. I tend to bullshit a lot.
Well, I'm going to believe everything you say because it's more fun that way. This is awesome. Okay, sick. I love hearing that. So that's awesome. I am absolutely smashing this beer. It looks like Nate is too. This is
Oh yeah.
This is fantastic, man. I can definitely see why this is a flagship and why you just flying through it and getting this out there. I love it. I love it. So let's get into the story, bro. If we may, I'd love to hear how you personally got into craft beer and then how that led to the brewery becoming about, as it were.
So I mean, like getting into craft beer. So I studied chemistry whenever I was doing my undergrad and whenever I started my master's. And so I was always fascinated by the chemical, like how beer is made, the biological, the chemistry behind everything. And so I got into it more for the sense of like, how is this made? Can I make it good? Can I make it better? Whenever I started making beer, I'll be honest, I didn't like beer. I did it specifically for how the building blocks made. And I would make beer for my friends who brought it to parties.
You're a good mate.
I like to think so, but whatever. So that's how I did it in my undergrad. Whenever I got into my master's, I started working on, all right, so what are the different things that I love about beer? What flavors do I like? And so that's whenever I started experimenting with more interesting flavors like sour beers, hoppy beers, even going back and trying old school styles of beers. Like I love making English bitters. And I think that those are very interesting because they give you a lot of they're hard to make good.
Yeah,
they're very easy to make, but they're hard to make good. So that's why I liked making those. And then whenever I moved to London, I started getting more into the science and the chemistry behind everything. And that's whenever I realized, yeah, you can make good hoppy beers and just throw hops into it and it will hide anything. What you really need to make are blonde ales. I didn't have a fridge or anything like that to do lagers at the point. And so it's like, all right, can I make a blonde ale with minimal hops, with a good base that people would want to drink a keg of this at a party? Right?
Gotcha.
And that's what really got, like, I think that we brewed blonde ale we got sick of it because we made too much of it. So that's when you started making porters again. That's when you started making IPAs and stuff like that. So yeah, my getting into beer was not necessarily because I like it. It was liked it. I love it now. It was because I wanted to know how it was made and what the different compounds do and the enzymes and all that fun stuff.
Okay.
So that was that. I joined a homebrew club whenever I moved to London. That was almost 11 years ago now. We had a group of people there that were very tight, and we wanted to, I don't say compete, but we always wanted to be like, all right, this is what I did. This is what I'm getting. How can I fix this? This is what I did. This is what I'm getting. How can I fix this? And we were always trying to fix that. Good friends. Some of them are now in the beer industry. Some of them were in the beer industry and are trying to get back into it. Some of them, were. I think that time period really forced us to experiment on trying to make a good product that we all enjoyed. So that's whenever I did the BJCP exam, because how else can you make good beer than to figure out what bad beer is, what those issues are, and can you fix them?
Good point.
Because if you're not seeing that, then you're just gonna be blind and you're gonna keep on making something. So I mean, yes, we did that. One of my home brewing friends, whenever we were doing that, he was considering opening a brewery, and he was talking with some other people, and we decided to team up and do this together.
Nice.
So
when was that?
That was 2015.
Okay.
We signed the lease and all of the documents in 2016, and opened our doors in 2017 December, but had our grand opening in 2018, which is why we say that we're 5 years old now.
Gotcha. Amazing. So like early. Okay.
Yes, we opened December. Our official opening was December 2nd, 2017, but our grand opening was the second week of January, which is why we have a party in January. It's also the slowest month of the year, so it's a way to have a party to get people to come in and drink.
Hell yeah. That's smart. That's
Not
awesome,
a bad
man.
idea there.
Hell yeah. 5 years. Okay. So you would have been around at some interesting times. You sort of would have started, I guess, as like Haze was sort of really taking
Haze
hold.
was, I listening to like beer and brew podcasts, Haze was still reviled. Like people were adamant that it was a bad brewer at that point.
In 2018.
Yeah.
Maybe in certain circles? Or was that like an industry thing?
No, I think that was in certain circles. I think that you have Bellwoods was making Jutsu in 2017, and so they were showing that you could make that at that point.
Yes.
Yeah.
I believe Sawdust did Juicing in about fall of 2016, and Barncat did, I think it was Pulp Nate in April 2016.
Yeah,
would have been Eminence.
I'm sorry, yes.
Yeah. I forgot about Juicing. That was delicious.
Yeah, Juicing's a good beer.
Yeah.
And they fixed it too. It's even better last I had it. So at the time, I recall, I guess I just sort of like positioning, sort of painting the picture of the landscape for people who may not sort of remember what it was like back then. Because I recall discovering Haze in 2016 and not being able to get it at home, which was frustrating. You'd have to go to Vermont. I lived in Montreal at the time, so we'd go to Vermont to get stuff. And I just wasn't really seeing it. And Quebec was extra late compared to Ontario.
Oh, Quebec. I mean, like, I have family who lived in Quebec, so I visit there quite a bit, or used to visit there quite a bit. And I always found that Quebec was avant-garde, and then they stalled, and then now they've moved forward than us again.
That's a fair assessment. That's a completely fair assessment. They always were. They were the ones ahead of the game with, barrel-aged beers, like whether it's stouts or sours and all that type of stuff. And then when the Haze came in, they resisted the trend so bad. It was hilarious. Like they were just so aggressive about it.
Yeah.
And then they
but
came
now
back.
They have Mesurium, and they have
Brewski, Sir John, Bar Canada, Sankiem, BG in Quebec City, Nana Cinco, Ketch, and man, there's a lot. Quebec's definitely killing it. It's interesting to see the trajectory of both provinces and sort of how it was. So when you guys opened, I guess I was saying that to sort of ask this question, was when you guys opened, what did you, I guess probably two-part question, what did you expect people to want? Like, I guess, were you aware of the pale ale thing? And two, what did you actually open with as far as the styles and such?
So I think we opened up with 5 different beers, and we expected our IPA to be the biggest seller.
Okay.
So we had a blonde ale because we weren't doing lagers at that point. We had a Berliner Weiss because we love sours, and that we love old school, long aging, those kind of sours, but we knew we didn't have the footprint to be able to do those. So we knew that Berliner Weiss was the way that we'd have to go about doing that. So that we started off with the pale ale, the IPA, and the porter. And we thought that the IPA was the one that was going to skyrocket and be the beer that people would enjoy the most. And so we were happy that the pale ale was the one that people loved because it's a bit cheaper for us to make. So those were the 5 beers that we started off with. The Berliner Weiss was such a good beer to start off with because we converted so many people that would walk in the door and say, I don't like beer. And you'd say, oh, what do you like? Oh, I like white wine. Try this beer. And then we had people that come in and just, that's the only beer they would drink.
Huh. Was it fruited or just the OG?
At
straight
that
up?
point, it was said. At that point, it was not fruited.
So it's perfect. Just
We
like
started doing fruited lactose beers. I think that was at our 2-month mark, 3-month mark.
Okay.
I guess pretty soon after, but we kept the OG Berliner Weiss constantly on tap up until COVID.
Huh. What changed?
We always had that available.
I mean, obviously, aside from shutting down, but what do you have it on now, or has that sort of moved on?
It's still not back. We will be brewing it soon. So what's interesting at the Berliner Weiss is people drink a lot of it, but they will not take it home.
Interesting.
It's a draft.
So exactly, yeah. So I would say that no matter when, it was always 80% draft, 20% cans. Whereas our pale ale before COVID, it was 60% draft, 40% take home. And at that point, that was our biggest one. And so the reason we haven't brought back the Berliner Weiss is because of those numbers, we're not moving enough in the tap room to warrant it taking up that much room in the fridge, because we're not moving enough through the tap room, through the fridge, for it to take up that much room. So we got to figure out, okay, what moves? It's pale ales, it's IPAs, and it's lagers. We currently have 5 lagers on the board.
Wow.
Lagers make up 1, 2, 4, 5 on our sales list.
Interesting. It's a pretty good segue right there, is it not?
Yeah, I would say so.
You set us up, Justin. You're a professional.
Oh, yeah, as if I knew what I was doing.
Next up, ladies and gentlemen, crispy boy time. Excited for this one. This is called Cove. Tell us about this little glorious can of joy.
So Cove is the baby of one of our previous brewers, Nate Medeiros. And it is one of our more annoying beers to make. Sorry, Nate, but it's true. It is a step mash, whereas most of our other beers are single infusion. So we hit it as a lower temperature, then we bring the temperature up further down the line in the mash. It's a very simple malt bill. It just uses some old school noble hops. So we have Sapphire, Pearl, and I believe Tettnang. Wow. So the European style hops. We still do it naturally carbonated, like he would want us to do. So that takes a lot more time. This beer tends to sit around. So whereas Sunburst will be about 2 to 3 weeks in the fermenter, this beer is often there between, I think we're averaging around 10 to 12 weeks after fermentation.
Oh, wow.
That is a long time. This nose is crazy. It's super
Yeah,
herbal.
it is.
Would you say herbal is there?
It's very herbal, but it's got a nice crisp bitterness. It's very easy on the tongue. It wants you to have a second drink.
It needs you to.
Yes.
And look at that foam too. Like that just that comes up so nice.
Can we cheers?
It's really fun. Hey, cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Cheers, gents.
Because this beer is a bit more crisp,
Nice.
a bit more bitter than some of our other lagers, this is a perfect beer to. I don't know if you guys remember the hard pours, but we hard pour this beer quite a bit. So what we'll do is we'll take a can and just dump her in
Straight
and
upside
then just
down.
let it go, and then just start topping it up as the foam subsides. And the mouthfeel is completely different. The aromatics are completely different. The bitterness is completely different. Like it's you would assume that I handed you 2 different beers.
Interesting. I did it mildly on this one because I find that these like sort of mugs are pretty cool for that. Like they don't overflow with the shot cans.
True.
But I don't think I went balls to the wall. I should have gone. And it sort of, what does the hard pour do? I guess it just really like moves everything around a lot more.
So all of the, not all, but a lot of the gases kind of escape. And so it makes it a bit more dense.
Huh. Interesting. You're 100% right. It is quite bitter. I mean, it's sort of like, it smells, it trips you out. Like the level of like herbaceousness in the nose is crazy. But then the body is more, I feel like I'm definitely getting grassy bitterness and some like floral notes alongside obviously the malt. What were the hops again, bro? It was Pearl, Tettnang.
It's Pearl, Sapphire, and Tettnang.
Sapphire, that's right. Thank you. I imagine it's the hops that's delivering that sort of
herbalness. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, they're old school German noble hops, and that's kind of a characteristic of those hops.
Interesting. That's what you were going for with this one, or Nate was going for?
Oh yeah. This is probably the beer I drink the most of at work. Or sorry,
I could see
after work.
that.
That's a good sentence. It's the beer I drink the most of at work. Other what's the word? Other jobs could never. They wish you could say that and not get in trouble.
Yeah. No, I think that people are getting shit for that.
Yeah, right. Fuck. Dude, this is wicked though. So like anything else that we're getting, other tasting notes that you we're pulling out of this from either of you guys?
I don't think I have anything that hasn't been that hasn't been said already. But like this is just fantastic. This is another one that definitely like begs sip after sip. Like,
oh yeah,
this I can tell you right now that this is going to disappear quickly. And it's got kind of a bit of a like a bit of a hit of peppery kind of thing on the end as well.
That's what it is.
Which is a nice finish that I dig. That sometimes comes with that with those noble hop profiles.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly what I'm getting. That peppery finish, which I guess that you're right, definitely comes with some of the noble hops. It's it works so well. It's such interesting like tasting notes that it's like in this style, it's just money. Like that sort of the herbal and the floralness that sort of like this is very unique pills. I would argue. You think that's fair? Like I feel like I can't remember tasting anything like this.
We're going for a real German style pills with this one. Whereas we find that, and we enjoy drinking them, but we find that everybody wants to be making Czech style pills these days.
Right.
And while we love drinking those beers, we didn't want to feel that we were just following everybody else's footsteps.
Gotcha.
So we wanted to do the other beer that we like to drink as well. Yeah.
That's fair.
But that's also why pills, because we do steal some ideas from Czech style. So instead of just calling it Pilsner or Czech style pills or whatever, it's just PILS.
I like that. It's clean. Very classy. Well, I definitely want to get to the artwork at tonight. Just talk about all the different artwork.
Yeah, it's actually my favorite. It's one of my favorite labels. That's why we have it as a mural on at the brewery. It's also got a little goose on it.
Nice.
Little goose. Oh, shouts to the goose. What's up with the goose?
There's a lot of goose in London, and they tend to attack you.
Oh, the Canadian.
We should pay homage.
Oh,
all right.
Yeah, I went to university in Waterloo, and there's the same kind of thing. The geese are everywhere there, and they're not scared. They're not scared of humans at all, and they get particularly aggressive when they've got younglings around.
Yes, no, and it's constant.
Are these the cobra chickens, like Canadian
Yes.
geese? Yeah,
The very same.
yeah, they're terrifying. And I know can't you get like. Isn't it like a felony or something if you injure one or attack one or something? Am I like it's like completely like it's not even frowned upon? Like it's like no, you're legally in trouble if you harm a geese.
I think you're right, but I would have to look that up.
I would say I advise everybody to stay away from the geese and please do not harm them for your own good. I also believe it's something. There's some sort of illegal thing about touching the Trillium flower, the Ontario Trillium flower or something like that. I was told.
There's a
Not
lot of
that's true.
trillium flowers around here along the trails. So
Don't touch them either.
the
Don't
name
touch
of the
them.
beer, the name of the beer is the Cove. I think we dropped the G'da at some point after our first batch. We just put it Cove. The brewery itself is located in the Cove neighborhood,
Mhm.
and it's kind of this river that isn't a river anymore, but it's a really nice walking trail that you can get to from the brewery. So that's what the label itself is. It's supposed to represent the. I don't know if my can can show it, but that is the river kind of. If you look at Google Maps, that is the river behind the brewery.
That's cool, man. I love that. And even just as you sort of describe it, the tactile, the feeling of the label, that sort of like matte kind of little grainy feel is fantastic. Like it grips to your hand and you just want to keep touching that bad boy.
Yeah, we love that, but we've had to stop doing that in our more recent label orders, unfortunately.
I see.
Because we were one of the few people doing it, and so they raised our prices so much that we would have had to raise prices for our beer.
Damn.
Yeah.
God damn it, label people. I understand. It's a tough time to be in business, so I guess you can always switch back at some point down the track if things level out. It's not that serious.
Exactly.
That's cool, man.
It's an extra fun feature, and I don't know about the cans you guys have, but we usually have. It's almost like sandpaper, and it's a weird thing to say that is a great thing to grip onto whenever you're drinking your beer.
Oh yeah, I imagine particularly this is a summer crusher for sure, as you were sort of saying earlier. And I imagine if you're sitting outside, palms get a little sweaty, beer ain't going nowhere.
Exactly.
And too, when the condensation starts to come on the can as well, you've still got the grip here, whereas some of the flatter paper stickers are a bit more slick once they get some condensation on them.
Yeah,
it's all about the grip.
No, exactly.
This is fire, bro. I'm loving it. So you opened in 2018. You got the 5 beers on tap. How did I imagine the reception. Actually, no. Back a little bit. How many breweries were in London, Labatt aside? How many craft breweries were in London at the time that you opened in the official launch in January 2018?
So there's Forked River. They were
like 2013 or something.
We're not counting Seeps. But there was Forked River. Anderson's had opened up the year before us. London Brewing Co-op. They've since rebranded as London Brewing. They opened between Forked River and Anderson's.
Okay.
But they were still at their 1-barrel system at that point, whenever we opened. So before we opened, there was 3 craft breweries.
Damn. So you were really early on.
Yeah. So now there's 12.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, the scene is booming there.
I think I'm including Labatt's with that. So no.
Even 11's crazy though. If you were saying there were like 3 others before you.
Yeah. Yeah, you have a lot that have opened up since. But I mean, like if you look at it like population wise, we should be able to supply a lot more than that. We're a city of 500,000 people with, we'll say 10. That's a nice round number. Craft breweries. That's a lot. That's a lot of people. That is a lot of people per brewery. So if you look at, say, Fredericton in New Brunswick, there's 16 breweries there for 60,000 people.
Damn.
Right? Prince Edward Island has 12 for 120,000 people. Or maybe they're at 140,000 people now. Right?
That's crazy.
Halifax, I forget the total right now, but Halifax has some fantastic breweries as well. And they're still smaller than London.
Right. So technically, even Hamilton, I think we've got like 6 here, and there's like 600,000 people. So it's even less.
But Hamilton, you guys are close to the rest of the GTA, and that's what is like
probably holding it back from exploding.
Ontario.
Yeah, that's probably a fair point. I think, Nate, we were talking with Fairweather about that, and I think they were even saying they don't think it could necessarily hold more, but I was just trying to align with the the numbers there, because I thought they could definitely do with more. If you look at like maybe not this, I'm not sure about London, but I imagine I know Hamilton is definitely cheaper than the rest of the GTA. If someone's looking to open a brewery, it would make sense, and there's less competition here. Where if you almost go anywhere else, there's going to be more breweries, and there's still a very solid amount of people here. Plus, as just the proximity means, there's a whole lot of other people within a reasonable driving distance to get down here, whether it's Burlington on one side or.
And I think that's why Cambridge is such a great location for a brewery. Cambridge has 6 or 8 breweries now.
Okay.
Yep.
And it's because the real estate is so much cheaper than KW.
Yeah.
But it's close enough that
it's close enough that you can draw those people in. And it's also close enough that if you live in Toronto, you could easily get there if you have access to a vehicle.
Yeah.
And that's the problem that London faces, is that we are on a good day 2 hours from Toronto.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
they're only an hour and a bit from Hamilton, but
yeah, which is great. From Toronto is a bit different. So because I always felt like London was like hella fun. I never went there. I do music, so I performed there a few times. So we'd always go out there, but it always felt like this massive endeavor to get out there from Toronto. So now here, definitely a lot closer. So what you're saying is essentially because of London's like lack of proximity to other major, centers in Ontario, it's sort of like the actual population does, like, it actually matters as far as like supporting those breweries, just like all the examples in the East Coast. So
exactly.
Do you see
London is close to everything. Like we're 2 hours from Windsor, Detroit. We're hour from Sarnia. We're an hour and a bit from Hamilton. We're an hour from KW. We're 2 hours from Toronto. We're 2.5, 3 hours to Collingwood. It's probably closer to more than that. So we're a really interesting city. Like we can get to Buffalo really easily. We can get to Detroit very easily. But it also means that it's very easy for us to get elsewhere.
Right. So do you foresee London getting to the point where it can sustain as many breweries as Fredericton?
I used to think that we could, but I do not believe so anymore.
Any reasoning there?
I think that people just really like going and checking out places outside of the city. Yeah. I mean, like our busiest time, so coming from Prince Edward Island, the busiest time in the year is obviously summer. That's your main time you want to focus. That's when you have people hired. That's whenever you want to operate at 100%, 120%. That's the time. That's go, go, go. The fall, the winter. In here, our busiest time is March and April.
Why is that?
Oh, shit.
Because those are when patio season starts. That's when people are between exams. That's whenever people are not ready yet to go to the cottage, to go to the beach, to go camping, but they still want to do something.
Interesting. So therefore you're saying that it's like, as far as the London demo, more people leave the city during the summer than tourists come in.
The city is it's a ghost town in the summertime.
Jesus.
Come July, August, everybody is camping, everybody is at the cottage. And I think that London is an interesting demographic too, because you have to have a vehicle to get around. The LTC, the bus service here is not great. Having lived in Montreal, having lived in other cities that have a bus transit system, Montreal has a subway as well. It's so easy to get around with the metro, with the bus.
That's true.
Here, if I want to go and visit a friend, I have to take three transfers. And they only live, 10 minutes away.
Right.
I think it's the river that goes through the city that kind of messes everything up. And then it's like, oh, that's how it is. And so there's no reason to improve it.
Okay. Do you have Uber out there?
And so because of that, everybody has a car.
Gotcha.
Right.
And everybody has access to the beach in summer. And if you can, people have access to cottages very easily, or they can go to Toronto, Buffalo, Detroit on weekends.
Interesting. So because everyone has a car, they're more likely to leave as opposed to other cities that maybe have Uber. Like, do you have Uber in London? Excuse my ignorance.
Yep.
They do. Okay. Because
Yep,
I know
we have
there was
Uber.
a period of time where like a lot of places didn't have Uber. I think like Winnipeg still doesn't have Uber type shit.
I think Winnipeg do now.
They might do now.
Possibly.
Last time I was there, they did not have it. And I heard Vancouver, I don't know if they still don't, but as of a couple of years ago, they didn't have it.
Yeah.
Point being, so I know it hadn't like, because it was like a city level that had to approve it, because there was dramas in Quebec, in Montreal specifically about Uber when I was there. A lot of stuff, and we never got Lyft out there because I was always pissed that at least in Toronto you could choose and see which one was cheaper or faster or whatever it might be.
Yep.
Whereas, out here, so because everyone has a car, it just gives them that like freedom to be like, well, we could check out this brewery that's 10, 15 minutes down the road, or we could make it a thing and go to Detroit or Windsor or whatever.
And I mean, there's also fantastic breweries within Ontario to visit. Willibald is 45 minutes away. Flux is 45 minutes away. Okay. Charlottesville is just over an hour away. Muse is same distance. That's not even talking about getting into the GTA. Gotcha.
Okay. Interesting. So there's a lot of, I guess, just like location-based challenges. Being a
There's
London,
a lot of things that people don't think about too, and so it's things that we've learned over the past 5 years. It's like, all right, we got to market something, but how do we market something to make it exciting for our demographic?
Right.
So to pull it back to that first year again, how was the response from that community that only had 3-4 other breweries at the time, back in January 2018?
Our response was fantastic. People loved it. I would say, I mean, we're standing on shoulders of giants.
Right.
Andersons and Forked River have done so much to help us with our customer base, with explaining what things are. So for people to be like, all right, so this isn't 50 anymore. This is a barrel aged beer. This is an IPA. This is, I mean, we drink so much Anderson's IPA before we opened, and we still do drink a lot of Anderson's IPA. And I think that
it's a really good IPA.
It's fantastic. But what was interesting was their IPA is not hazy. Forked River's IPAs at that point were not hazy.
Right.
And so us coming in and brewing a hazy pale ale really threw people for a loop. I mean, it still does. I had a bar email me this morning and said, hey, this beer is hazy. I say, well, yeah, it's supposed to be.
And they didn't know in 2023.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, that's part of our education that we need to keep on working on.
Okay.
But that's still a thing in 2023 that haze is not something to be feared.
I would not have expected that response. I just kind of felt at this point it's a bit of a given that like everybody would know what's up with haze, and it just is what it is because it's been so long. It's like, what's that? It's like 7 years. It could have even been 2015.
I think it became a bit. I mean, like if you look at Heady Topper, I mean that was
early even than that. So if say you go post Vermont IPAs, so Sip of Sunshine and Heady. So when I don't even know who it was probably Treehouse or Trillium or something like that kind of took it to that next level. So that must have been 2014, 2015, perhaps.
Treehouse was 2013 or 2014 because I think they opened around the same time as. I think, or were they before then?
I always forget the history.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember. When did Bellwoods open? Were they 2012?
2012, April 2012, because I lived up the road at the time.
Yeah. Because I remember reading their blog before they opened.
Okay.
Because I was still living in Newfoundland at that point.
They didn't do haze in 2012 at all. Witch Shark was straight like multi and clear.
Yeah. But Treehouse opened, I believe, right before Bellwoods did.
Okay.
Imagine the uproar if Treehouse tried to open up in Ontario back in
Right.
2012.
Doing the same type of beers they do today.
Oh man. Well, I mean, that's what they were doing back then.
Jeez. Okay, so they were so far. They must be the what do you want to call it? Like the godfathers of this shit. Aside from, Hetty and Alchemist and Lawson's, like they must have been the ones doing it first.
I think that they were ones advertising that they were doing it compared to the other places.
Who were doing it but weren't yapping about it. Huh.
Exactly. I mean, that's what one of the reasons that Hetty Topper, I believe, I read this somewhere, but I forget where, Hetty Topper said drink from the can was because people were freaked out by how hazy it was.
That's smart.
Yeah.
Like, that's actually genius. Okay.
Right? I mean, like, everybody assumes that Hetty Topper says drink from the can is because they're implying drink it fresh, which is true. But it was to also not scare people away when they put it in a glass.
I get that's completely fair, because I guess it would have been considered opaque. I wouldn't call Hetty hazy as such. Maybe now, I know I haven't had it for a while. But
I guess my views and yours were different, because I would say it's hazy, whereas Treehouse be opaque.
interesting. I
Makes
guess
sense.
I was more. I'd have to probably look at a Hetty. I haven't seen a Hetty for a hot minute.
Hetty, you can see shadow through it.
Oh, so
Whereas,
opaque is
like-
thicker than hazy to you, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Oh, I use it
Exactly.
the other way. I use it probably wrong then. I say opaque if it's like a little bit hazy. And if I say hazy, I mean that's like murk.
Okay. So yeah, we're using the opposite.
Yeah, I
Right.
think actually now you're saying it, I'm using it incorrectly. Point being though, which is fascinating to me, that if Treehouse opened before Bellwoods, that means they were doing a New England style IPA in about 2011. But it was probably a local only thing for quite some time. And I was into beer at
They
back
started
then.
off on a 1-barrel system, moved up to a 5, then a 7, then 15 before they got this 50-barrel brew house. So I mean, they were only servicing their local population and people that were willing to camp out for days on end.
Gotcha.
Yep.
I just never crossed my
Like, I remember
radar.
I don't remember who gave it to me because I never went there, but somebody got us a flip top growler from Treehouse,
Sick.
Oh shit.
but I didn't know who they were at the point.
And how was it?
So I threw away the tag and everything.
Ah, man. Probably was some at this point. God damn. So
It's
then,
funny.
Nate,
Sorry, go ahead. Go
No,
ahead.
please. I'm just yapping.
No, I was going to say it's it's funny you mentioned the like kind of the account education thing, and that maybe seeming a bit surprising like in 2023, but you're also not the first ones who have mentioned that in the last in the last couple of years. Like that's come up a couple of times. I remember when we were talking to Fine Balance and Daft about a year and a half ago, they were both saying that was a common thing in the Kingston market, that there was still some account education that like to go on when people are coming up with some things that are hazy and that and that's striking some accounts a little bit. And I remember Gavin was talking about that as well in the London scene when we were chatting with him back in November. So it does seem to be that there are still some pockets who who need to be told not to be scared off by it.
And it's one of those things. I think that a lot of places, they're used to pouring 50. They're used to pouring like just clear beer all the time.
Right.
And like the hoppier thing that they'll pour, is probably like, what's it called? Honker's Ale?
Goose
Uh,
Island?
Oh,
Goose
yeah.
Island?
Yeah.
Well, it's brewed in London, right?
Okay. Oh, Labatt. Yeah.
Yeah. So like that's the hoppiest thing, and it's still clear.
Right.
Yep.
So then the types of accounts, maybe that's the differentiator. The types you're talking are kind of bars that are not necessarily considered a craft beer bar, but just maybe a bar that has a bunch of stuff on there and want to support local, but aren't exactly beer educated enough to know about New England IPAs, which still strikes me as strange if you're selling beer in 2023. But
So we don't have a lot of craft beer bars in London,
right,
right? I mean, we have Milosh's downtown. We have, and then after that, we have restaurants that like craft beer, and they will have some taps on. But
Okay.
everybody else that we work with are not necessarily looking for craft beer. They're looking for something that's local.
Right.
and if that logo happens to be craft, do they become pickier or maybe a little skeptical about something that's unfamiliar?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So it's still breaking that. That's part of the challenge.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And you also have a lot of their clientele who, show up at 11 o'clock, stay there all day. They'll eventually try something that is not Bud Light,
Right.
and be surprised whenever it's not crystal clear.
Okay.
And then send it back.
What about, say, Cove or any of your other like lagers? Do they contribute to conversion to craft for some of these types of locals?
Our biggest conversion beer is probably our Irish Red.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, it's very easy to. Cove is a delicious beer, and that's why we're drinking it right now. But whenever people come in and they've only been drinking macro style beers, they come in and they want to try something, and they're either going to try our pale ale or they're going to try an Irish Red because it's smooth, it's easy to drink, it's malty, so it's completely different than what they're usually used to, and it's got a cool color.
Right.
But
they
don't want to try the Pilsner because it's too bitter.
Okay. Too much flavor. I get it.
Yes. Oh, that's actually why we stopped making a blonde ale.
Because
no longer make a blonde ale because too much flavor. That was the complaint that we had time and time again.
Too much flavor.
I don't like this. I don't like this. It's got too much flavor.
That's a good episode name potentially.
That's funny. That's funny.
What's
I have
funny about that, though, is that
I have to imagine that the Irish Red probably converts a lot of the folks who are comfortable with like a Rickards Red or something like that too.
Well, I mean, like that beer was designed to be. I love Smittix and I love Rickards Red, and so that beer was designed so it's not sickly sweet, and that's I find the biggest issue with a lot of red ales is that they're too sweet. And you can't drink more than a half. Right? It wasn't in our lineup, but if you guys want to try it, it's got some sweetness to it. It's got maltiness. It's got toast notes, not roast. And so it's not like overly powered, weird flavors that people aren't used to. And so it's a very easy thing to kind of convince people, all right, you're used to fizzy water. Let's try some fizzy water with malt notes. And if you really don't like that, then we have what we call Keats. And that is our just easy drinking lager.
Right.
That beer was designed to be, funnily enough, it is our blonde ale, but we use the lager yeast. And it no longer has too much flavor.
No shit.
This is so funny, man. That is hilarious.
That's the official reason we call that beer is because we like the author Keats, but the real reason is to make fun of my father who has difficulty with THs.
Savage.
Oh no.
It's my father. His father's one of the best people around, and so every time you go home, you always be like, "Hey, do you want a Keats?" And he uses the term the same way that you would use Kleenex, or in Quebec they use the term Kodak instead of a camera. So Keats is a generic term for beer.
That's
Because
hilarious.
he would say, do you want a Keats? But then he'd pass me a Gahan, which is a local
Right.
craft brew on PEI.
That's hilarious.
Okay.
That's some good fun facts. Which one do we want to do then? Do we want to do the Irish Red or do we want to move on to the what are we feeling, boys?
So
What's
the
the
Irish
vibe?
Red is probably one of my favorite beers we make, and that's why I push it so much. But I think that we should go for the IPA. I want you guys to try that.
Okay. No problem.
Let's do it.
Here she is. Another gorgeous can. I'm loving the consistency of this. Like, it reminds me of all the art is like very, I don't know what it's called, but like that 70s, like, what's it called? Pop art or some shit? Like I don't know, it's like real, like cool, some of the pastel colors and just these like nice straight lines with some like cool curves. It just reminds me of like different art my parents had as a kid.
So the art on all of our cans are designed by, we have an in-house designer, Paul Harrison, and he has done some fantastic work. Hopefully I don't press anything to mute myself. I just spilled some beer on my keyboard.
All been there.
So Paul has been doing some fantastic work with all of our labels. We did a rebrand back in 2020. We had a very simple can design that was 2 colors. It was black and then a different color with the label with the logo on it, and we would change the color depending on what beer it was. But we quickly ran into the issue of, well, you can't have more than 2 green beers. You can't have more than 2 blue beers in the fridge. And so it took us a while, but we've been working on some really fun and awesome labels I've been finding since then.
They just really stand out. When I was just looking at all of them side by side earlier, I was just like, wow, these are like really cool. Now we're like sort of staring at them as we're drinking them, as we're talking through the beers. It's almost like I just feel like the labels are matching the tasting notes or something. Like it's tripping me out.
Mm-hmm.
Well, usually like the way that Paul works, I mean, like I can't read inside of his head, but we'll give him some ideas it's like, all right, this beer is going to be an IPA. We're going to use these hops, and we're probably going to get these tasting notes from it.
Okay.
And then he comes back with a design.
That's dope.
I love
Usually
that.
the best way is to let the artist sort of do their thing.
Exactly.
This In Motion, is this a series at all? Or is this like this is one? Okay, cool. It's a one-off.
So this beer here was actually in support of Anova, which is a women's shelter. So we released this beer for International Women's Day. So we had all of the women on staff brew this beer together. I mean, everybody seemed to have a really fun time. Unfortunately, I was out doing deliveries, so I couldn't hang it with them during the day. It was Diana, Courtney, and Madison who came up with the grain bill, which hops they wanted to use. And it was a fun day for them to do that. Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Nice.
Shall we get?
And this is Cryopop and the Pink Boots blend.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, we really like the Cryopop. It's delicious. It's become one of our top. This is only the second beer that we've personally used it in, but we just keep on trying to figure out how can we use it again.
Okay. I love it. It smells great. Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Glorious.
So yeah, compared to Sunburst, it's a lot more bitter.
Yeah.
But this is it's given the tank time so that we don't have. I'm personally not a big fan of hop burn. I know a lot of people are. People love that, but I am not.
Fair enough.
Yeah, everybody has their own tastes, and like we have brewed plenty of beers with hop burn in it, and that was intentional. we've also brewed beers with hop burnout that was not intentional. This beer was given the time to kind of settle that away, so we didn't have that. We just wanted it to be. It's only 6%. Because we wanted people to drink multiple of these. I think that's one of the things about us is we used to try, whenever we first opened, we were like, all right, all of our beer is going to be under 6%. And then as we went, we're like, all right, we need to throw some double IPAs in there. All right, we need to throw some imperial stouts in there. All right, we need to brew a barley wine. We need to do some big 11% beers. And we did a lot of those. But our original idea of becoming a hype brewery, you can't manufacture that. We realized that pretty quickly. And so it's like, well, what are we? Well, we're a local pub. We're a local place for people to hang out. We're a community center. And we don't want people driving. We want people drinking a lot, enjoying their beers, and walking home afterwards. And so that's why we focused a lot of our beers around that. So that's why we have a lager. That's why we have a pale. That's why we have a red. Like, a lot of places won't brew a red. I'm bringing it up again just because I really like it. That's why we brew a red, is because it gives people diversity in what they can consume.
Yeah.
And then moving on to the IPAs, we used to only have 1, then 2, then 3, then many. And then we've decided to pare that back and be like, all right, we have 1 now, we have 2 now, we have 1 now, we have 3 now. But we're trying to keep that as a more of a smaller subset of what we have, because like we're saying, that's not the top beer that people are consuming at our place.
Right.
I personally believe that we make fantastic IPAs, and I think that they can go against some of the other best IPAs in the province. I could be biased, but what London is consuming is not necessarily IPAs.
Right.
But whenever we brew them, we want them to be as delicious as they can be. And I think that this showcases that.
This is great, man. I like it. I know what you mean. It's very different to, I like that it's very different to Sunburst too. It's still nice and creamy. I feel like there's a bit of dankness to it. Stone fruit, citrus, like apricot kind of thing happening.
Yeah, I think that's coming from the those like the dank notes. That's coming from the Pink Boots blend.
Yeah, which is probably like, I think it's like 5 or 6 different hops they do every year.
Yes, yeah,
which is very cool. Yeah, man, this is great. It's just cool because I'm starting to get a picture. This is like, you know, now I'm seeing the pale and IPA and a Pils, like, is all super different, really interesting, really crush. You know, we're just smashing these down tonight. This is great, dude. I like this one a lot. As far as the LCBO, by the way, we got Sunburst in there, but are there any other beers that are in the LCBO at all?
So we had the Irish Red as a seasonal. So it was there for St. Patrick's Day, which was a great time for an Irish Red to be in the LCBO.
Absolutely.
Yep.
And I think that, so what's interesting with the LCBO, I'm sorry if you're from the LCBO and you're listening to this, is we are in London and we're producing for the London crowd, but the LCBO head office is in Toronto.
Right.
And they're looking at what is being consumed in Toronto. So going back to, I think the reason I bring it back to red ale all the time is because it's very easy to use that as an example. That will not sell in Toronto. It is in the LCBO and I don't try to sell it to Toronto. That beer is focused in London and in the surrounding areas because I know it will sell there. And you put that forward to head office and, that will not sell in Toronto. It's like, but I'm not trying to sell it to Toronto.
Right.
I'm trying to get it into the hands of people in London.
And they sort of struggle with that because they think that it has to sell everywhere.
Yes.
Okay. That's interesting that they don't understand that in a craft beer world
As an
with
outsider, that's been my view at least.
I don't know enough about it to have an opinion, but being that it's a government bureaucratic organization, I would imagine that that is absolutely how it's going down. I guess because they all seem, every time I go to LCBOs, and now I'm in Ontario full time, I've been going to a lot more. I find that everything is kind of unique to the areas. I know, Nate, you could probably even like align with it a bit more, being that you've been in Ontario the whole time. But like, I always find wherever I go, I'm like, oh, if I go to the one on Bank Street in Ottawa, I'm seeing a lot of local beers out there. And I go to the ones here and I'm seeing like Collective and Clifford and all that type of stuff. So it's like wherever you are, I do find that the LCBO seem to have a solid representation of that local and surrounding crowd. And I imagine that the actual SKUs are probably catered in the way that what you're talking about, Justin, with regard to, you know, like if a particular area is into red ales, then you pop that bad boy in there, so on and so forth.
I think that's a very good point too. Is like, I think that every LCBO has to be treated differently. So we sell to one LCBO in particular, well, every LCBO in London, and some of them will take, you know, one case every 2 weeks. Some will take one case a month. But then we have one that takes 5 cases of one beer, which doesn't sound like a lot, but I mean, it's sold by the individual unit every week.
Right.
And it's like, okay, so like now you have to think about it. It's like, why is that location that much better than those other locations?
I have a theory on that, and you could probably back it up. And I'm like 90% sure it's all to do with the beer buyer or the person who's in charge of the beer program at that particular LCBO. I know that's
a very big portion of it, but it's also who's buying there. In that location in particular is students.
Right.
Okay. So they're students,
not
wouldn't that come down
students,
to
not undergrad students, but graduate students.
So they have a different budget or a different taste profile, or both? Both. Would the beer buyer be the one to have to be the one inherently in that job? They should know that and therefore be able to cater to them?
Should be. Whether they're doing their job properly or not, I don't know. It depends.
Yeah, I know one dude. I used to trade with him. He's the beer manager at the one on Queen and Coxwell in East End of Toronto.
We have beer there.
Okay, fantastic store because he is a legend. Brandon's his name. Shouts to Brandon. So I used to, he's friends with my brother. I met him through my brother, and my brother works at Avley in Toronto. So I would always bring stuff from Montreal, and he'd hook up back. I haven't seen him for a bit, but he used to get me the Milkshake from Bellwoods and stuff back when that was like a big deal and harder to get for me. So I've been to that store a few times, and that is probably, aside from the AAA stores, I think it's Queen Key and Summerhill or whatever, that specific store has the best and most nuanced beer library within the store that I've seen in an LCBO, and I believe it's 100% because of him and because his decisions. He's a beer guy, a beer nerd. He's personally trading with people. He's traveling for beer. Almost every time I check into a beer on Untapped, he's already checked into it. Like, I from what I can tell, I haven't spoken to him for a bit to ask him, but from what I could understand, it all comes down to his personal knowledge and taste. And he's like, well, Storm State makes this killer red ale, or there's this stuff, the Sunburst, that needs to be in here because we need to balance out our pale ale portfolio, and they make a fantastic one, and we want to represent the whole province, so on and so forth. So it's like, if some stores don't have a beer that, unless maybe the person who's handling beer happens to handle wine or something, and they don't know anything about beer, I'm theorizing. They're just like, I don't know, fuck it.
I'm completely agreeing with everything you just said. I'm cutting you off again. I'm sorry.
No, but, I'm good. I finished, brother.
It's because you do talk to some of the beer ambassadors, and they absolutely have craft beer, and you can really tell in those stores. I'm thinking of 2 stores in particular in London. They have a fantastic breadth of great craft beer in those stores.
Dope.
And they're not always the best locations, but people seek those locations because
that changes the whole conversation.
Yes. And then I have another store that will not be named that should be our biggest mover. But because the beer ambassador there does not like beer, their beer's the worst in the city. So it's all about who is in charge of that department or departments.
That's crazy. Like it just shouldn't be like the importance. And I think this is like in context of the recent history in the last 3 years. I think the importance of the LCBO of supporting craft breweries has increased. Before, and both you guys could probably speak to this because I was only coming to Ontario intermittently. Like I'm seeing breweries that would never, ever, ever be an LCBO, say Bellwoods, for example, Blood Brothers, fucking Burdock, like those type of cats are in every LCBO almost now. Whereas previously you had to go to the brewery and go get their thing. So I feel like once everything sort of hit the fan and then people realized that maybe they couldn't get out to the brewery like they used to, so their only avenue of accessing that beer would be going to the LCBO, they ultimately became more important to...
I think there's a couple different things that led to that.
Okay.
I think that competition is one.
Good
so yeah, some breweries that opened up in 2014, 2015, and they were the only thing in town. Back in those days, what was there? There was 20 breweries in Toronto?
About that, I would say.
Right? Well, now there's 80, 90. And so if you can't move all of your product through your door that you need to move, you need to find an avenue for it. So that was a big one, was competition. And so a lot of breweries, a lot of places said, we're never going to be in the LCBO. We're never going to be in a beer store.
Yes.
Never say never.
Justin Bieber.
So,
okay. Best.
So I think that's one thing, is that you're now competing. Also, too, so that was a big thing. Always going back to it, I think COVID is a big factor. People, for the first number of months, were terrified of leaving their neighborhood, their city, their region. Well, if I can't get to Blood Brothers in Toronto, if I can't get to Bellwoods in Toronto, if I can't get to Burdock, how am I going to get their beer? And it wasn't for a couple of months before online shopping became a thing. And so people started applying and getting things into the LCBOs.
Right.
Yep.
Because that was an avenue to get beer moving and into people's hands. I think those are the two biggest things, was competition and getting product in the hands of people.
I can certainly see that being a thing. The LCBO is really such a weird landscape. As you both already said, like the attitudes and experience of the beer ambassadors at the individual stores seem to make such a huge difference. And and in that way, you can wind up with some really weird outliers, both good and bad. And I'm thinking of some things that you don't expect to find in certain stores. I'm thinking back maybe 3-4 years. We're talking pre-COVID, probably something like 2019 or something like that. There's one store in Ottawa that I randomly discovered that they always had 3 or 4 selections of Anderson there, and you didn't see that anywhere else in the city. And I later learned that it was a case of there's one Anderson sales rep in Ottawa, and he would just personally go around to the LCBOs in Ottawa and just say here's some product if you're interested in this one store. Evidently he was able to convince them, because it was the one store in the city that you could always be guaranteed to see 3 or 4 different selections of those Anderson 6-packs sitting in those stores there. So if you've got a motivated sales rep and a beer ambassador at the LCBO who's receptive to craft, even stuff that's not local, you can wind up with some really unexpected, in a good way, like finds it like in those stores. It's such a strange economy in that way.
No, definitely.
That's interesting.
I think that there's such a human touch to that.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
So
does the LCBO require that somebody personally goes and sells the beer? Is that still the thing? I know there's like two ways. One is just from some sort of sheet, and then two is it's like a store by store man, feet on the ground type of approach.
So no, but yes.
Okay.
So no, in a sense that you don't need to do that, but yes, in a sense that if you go in and do a tasting with the LCBO, then the staff will understand what the beer is and what the flavors are, and
then
they will remember you, and they might encourage it to the next patron.
I've had staff specifically try to sell me specific beer, so I imagine it probably is due to things like that. I guess all of this is really saying how important the LCBO is. I feel like I don't want to talk down on its importance prior to all these last few years, but it's almost like it's become more important now. Like you were saying, it's the avenue through which breweries are able to move, the volume that they need to move if it's not going through the doors.
So I used to be of the mind that we should get rid of the LCBOs and we should only sell at corner stores, similar to Montreal, Quebec.
Yeah.
And what I've realized lately, this could be wrong, and I might be thinking about this wrong, and I'm sure your commenters will blast me for this thought process, but if we open the floodgates to 7-Elevens, to Couche-Tard, and to all of those, they don't have the requirement to sell craft. They have a requirement to put money in their shareholders' pockets. And what makes money? Well, 30 racks
50.
of Bud Light.
Yeah.
Yep.
I can speak to that. Every gas station in Quebec does not sell craft, almost nothing at all.
And whereas like it's difficult for me to get my beer into the behemoth of the LCBO. But once my beer is there, all it takes for me to do is convince them to take it on their shelf.
Right. So then it becomes physically getting people in there, whether it's yourself or your team, to go and do those tastings. And it is worth doing those tastings if the result is what you were talking about just before. It's an interesting one.
And then, it's worthwhile too. You make almost, I think that we did the math on it, and every can sold, we make 15 cents.
So, okay, I've heard this before. That's fucking insane, first of all. Second, it feels like LCBO, correct me if I'm wrong, it feels like LCBO is essentially a marketing cost. Whilst it's like technically a profit, it's so marginal that it's whatever. But it's putting if I'm perusing those, almost every LCBO has those walk-in fridges now. So I always go in, my girlfriend's going to buy wine. I'm like, well, I probably won't buy anything, but I'm going to take a look. I'm always curious. I very rarely buy something because it's always old as fuck and it drives me crazy. I don't want to see, I see it. I'm like, this brewery would be devastated to see this can from August and it's March type of thing. And I'm looking in there, and if I see a beer, and if I'm not I'm very picky with things like that, well, I'm probably an outlier, but the average person might come in and be like, oh, this looks interesting, cool. And then all of a sudden they're introduced to your brand. And and you make 15 cents to get them introduced to your brand, as opposed to making, I imagine, substantially more if it's sold across the counter in the brewery. It's essentially a marketing cost to be able to get new consumers who wouldn't physically go to the brewery aware of you and whether they would purchase either directly from or online or whatever it might be. Is that an accurate thought?
It's not as much as it used to be.
That's
So I'm not disagreeing with with what you said, but like whenever it was 2018, 2019, whenever people had easier access to businesses because COVID wasn't a thing at that point, if you put a beer in the LCBO, you would guarantee your in-house tap room to double, if not triple.
wow. So what
Right?
changed?
That's tap room in addition to your sales from your own bottle shop. Because like, all right, so I've got Sunburst, my pale ale in the LCBO. What else do they have? What else do they make? Well, I have 16 beers on tap.
Damn.
Right?
That's dope.
And so you coming into my tap room, you have a plethora of options. And then in my fridge, I've got 12 beers available to go. Right? And you're able to take individual cans, or if you really like it, you take a 6-pack or a 4-pack, or if you really want to, you can buy a case. And that's what it was before COVID. Because of COVID, what we've noticed is people are still nervous about going out, and they're doing their shopping at the LCBO and only the LCBO.
Mm.
What we're finding is the LCBO is not giving us the marketing value that it used to give breweries. But what we are finding is licensees is taking that place.
So that people aren't willing to, when you say licensees, I like, just to clarify, I imagine you meaning restaurants and bars.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and I'm saying that to kind of almost point out the hypocrisy from the consumer side, where they won't go to the brewery, but they'll go to a restaurant or a bar to get your stuff.
So what we're seeing, no, I mean in the sense of like licensee has become our better way of marketing. So if we have,
so not like more volume, just better.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So if we have a beer in at, I think a good example would be Beer Town.
Mm-hmm.
If we have a beer in Beer Town, if we have it in the one that is in Burlington, or one in Cambridge, well, it's very easy for those people to make it to London.
Right. And they're craft beer consumers because they're going to a place.
Exactly. They're already craft beer consumers walking through those doors.
Mm-hmm.
And we have anecdotally a lot of people that will go to those bars and restaurants and then make the drive down to our space.
Right.
Yep.
Whereas we don't have the anecdotal evidence of people going to the LCBO and then saying, "Oh, I tried your beer at the LCBO. I thought I should see what else you had." Whereas that used to be the case.
Mm-hmm.
That's so interesting. So
yeah, it's really interesting how that, like how the marketing aspect of that evolves over time.
Mm-hmm.
So then, what role does independent bottle shops play now? Has that taken up some of the slack? Because that must be a different.
They are super interesting. We love working with independent bottle shops, but independent bottle shops are
lower volume,
a lot less volume.
Yeah, or are they like less volume but converting the right consumer?
They're not converting people.
They're already converted. They are us. You're right.
They've already been converted.
You're speaking to you're preaching to the choir. You're so right.
Yeah. And so what those bottle shop people are is, I don't want to leave my neighborhood, but I want to drink good beer.
Yeah,
that's me.
And I think what the independent bottle shops do is they like we've already said, it's not converting anyone. Like the people walking through those doors are craft beer drinkers already. What it gives is the place for someone to be able to grab something from 4 or 5 different breweries without needing to place an online order of minimum $50 from each brewery.
Facts, plus the shipping.
That's exactly it. Yeah. I mean, shipping for us was always a killer, which is actually why we killed it recently. We wanted to keep on selling things, but it was not viable.
That's fair. That's fair. The You're so right. I didn't think of it like that because it's like everyone I meet, like there's Durand here in Hamilton, which is my go-to, and it's exceptional.
Yeah.
It's one of the best.
You have Durand and you have Endless.
Endless as well. Yep, definitely.
Yep. Oh, you also have Shorty's. What's their place called?
Oh, Shorty's. Yeah, the pizza spot.
Yeah.
Shorty's is amazing. I haven't been there. We usually would just Uber Eats it, but that's sick to know that they've got your stuff as well. I had been in there a couple of times to pick up, and they did have a like, half a dozen Ontario craft beers, which is phenomenal.
We're kind of hurting for it a little bit in Ottawa. Like we do have some options. Like my personal favorite is Dominion City's Corner Store. As they like the Friends of the Dominion stuff that they've got there is usually pretty good, but it's a lot smaller in scale than Durand and not as consistent. Like certain breweries will show up like once every couple of months, as opposed to Durand, where they're guaranteed to have every single Third Moon and Badlands release in like in everyone else. Like the closest that we've got here to that is the one that they've got out at the Cat in at the Cheshire Cat in Carp, but that's way out in the west end of town, which is about like on a good day, a 30-minute drive from the center of town here. So it's not it's not quite as convenient as
I went to Cat back in
Durand.
2010. That was 13 years ago. Was whenever I went there, and yeah, the only thing they had on tap at that point was Guinness, Harp, and a couple other things like that.
Wow.
Oh, the Cat is fantastic. They're a great restaurant, and like they've now got a spectacular craft tap list. One of the best in in the Ottawa region. Like they've probably got like 15 taps now, and their retail store is probably the best in the city. But yeah, it's a bit of a drive to get out there.
Yeah, no, I did a bike trip, and that was one of the places that I stopped in to take a little breather while I was biking. And I just remember stopping in there, and it was packed because there was a soccer game on.
Oh yeah.
It's cool how those places have turned into a bottle shop. I like that a lot.
Yeah, I mean, like that's a place that you would, back in the day, you would never expect that to happen at that location. Mm-hmm. And that's what we love about it, is that it can.
Yep.
I think that a fantastic location in Cambridge is the Gator's Tail. From the outside, you'd never expect it, but it's got all your sports you want to watch and some of the best beers in Ontario on tap.
Love that.
In town here, you have Milos's. He's got 32 beers on tap. And
I've heard so many good things about that place.
People constantly rave about that to me.
Unanimously.
Yeah.
We should hit it sometime, Nate, but
yeah, we should.
Should we do the next one?
It's time.
I gotta go check something. I'll be right back in 2 seconds.
Brother. Do it.
Go for it.
This is a fascinating conversation. I hadn't thought about
this is quite the peek behind the curtain of the of what the marketing side is in further into the 2020s. It's wild how much the game changes in such a short amount of time, isn't it?
Oh, bro, it's so insane, and it's like almost disheartening to see how much the LCBO has. I don't know, a disproportionate impact on craft beer, and then if you get people running the show who don't actually care, then it can mess with everything, which is extremely disappointing. And I know we're supposed to more be talking about Storm State beer, which honestly, 3 from 3. These are look, I got fucking 3 empty glasses right here. This is
me too, man. And like the one that I drained the fastest was that Pils. That was so fucking good. My God.
I've been watching you empty your glasses, and just for you guys to know, Nate and I always have a running joke. I have a bit of a problem. I get really excited, and I just fucking crush during these pods because we're always, interviewing fantastic breweries who do phenomenal stuff, and I just get excited and I just crush the beers, and I end up really lit at the end of it. Nate, obviously you're a earlier morning person than I for multiple reasons. And tonight was one of the first times I've seen you just fucking destroy every single beer. It's
man, it's true.
It's great. I just want to point that out because I just let you know that I noticed that, and I'm feeling great. And there's one thing that I wanted to compliment as well, Josh. So obviously, we're just saying how great all of these beers are, and how Nate and I have, both of us have 3 empty glasses next to us. When typically we would sort of let them ride a bit because we have to be responsible, but it's been difficult. Like we haven't been able to control ourselves, and we're feeling great. And I think part of the reason is because they're the short cans.
Yes.
This format is I don't know if it's underrated, but I love the short can format. It's so dope.
I mean, we love the short can, which is why we do them. I don't drink much, which is a weird thing to say.
Yeah, a little surprised.
Yeah, but the reason we went with the short cans is for that reason.
Right.
I drink a tall can and I don't want a second.
Gotcha.
I drink a short can and I'm okay with having a second.
Yeah.
And if I've had a second, it's like, well, a third isn't that much more.
Yep.
It's mental gymnastics, but it's a thing.
That's my thought process. I'm not saying it's right.
I think you're 100%. I was like, this podcast, we could hit 6 easy.
Yeah. That would have been no problem. And these are crushers just going down super easy. And I've for a long time been outspoken about how any high ABV beers, I want them to be 355 ml packaging. If it's an imperial stout, something like that, I'm really down for the Péché Mortel 355 ml bottles. Yes. Or short cans. It's a case of 500 ml bottles or even 750s for some going back in the days. Those will just wreck me if I anything that's high ABV. I want them on short cans. I want them in 355 ml bottles
every time.
Do you remember whenever everything was in bombers, 650 ml?
Yes.
Oh my god!
Very aggressive.
Those were rough days.
Yeah.
I mean, getting a 9% Imperial IPA in those, it's like, all right,
what are you
I
doing?
can't drink this now. And then it's like, you keep on. It's like, okay, why is this beer 9 months in the fridge?
Yeah. That's every time.
Oh yeah, that's a case of much love to left field, and they now have everything in short cans. Right? God love them for that. But back in the day, when everything used to be in a 650 ml bottle, when Laser Show would come out, that could wreck you with just one bottle.
Oh yeah, those 600. What would you say it was? It was 6. Is it 660? 650. Or those BAOS bottles. What were they? Were they 650s?
Yeah, they were.
Yeah, they were I was thinking about this last night because on Wednesdays I drink the big stouts and I had these 2 355 ml cans and I was like, if I do 2 of those, what's that? That's all right, 710 mils. I'm like, all right, that's a little bit bigger than those old BAOS bottles. I'm like, do I want that fucking much of these stouts right now? I'm like, it's a little too much. So it's so interesting how much I feel like the packaging influences the consumption so directly. And I know there's something
that is such a big topic of marketing that we always go through. It's such a big gymnastics. Just packaging. Should we be doing the 473s? Should we keep on with this? Should we go to 250 or 250?
I don't think anyone does 250. What's 250? The Red Bull cans, right?
Yeah, barley wine. Some people do that for imperial stouts, pastries.
I look, if those are viable, I think they're lit. I've always been an advocate. Those ones, I don't know if it's quite the same thing because I can't remember the conversion, but in America, they always have the 8-ounce cans. They're the stubby cans. They're almost half a 355. Are they?
I think so. 8-ounce cans are 250s.
Okay.
I think. I could be wrong.
We might have to double
I'm really
check
careful with my conversion from ounce to mils, but
we can double check. We have
my math is bad in the first place.
How many?
But the slim cans, those are actually 355s, but they are just the height of a 473.
That's right.
Right. So it's 236 milliliters. So it's basically the same thing. So those short cans, if you can get an imperial stout in a can that's that big, which only got 250 mil for a single serving where it's 10+%, 10, 11, 12, whatever, that's money. That's exactly where it needs to be.
So So this is stopping us from drinking our next beer. But the funny thing about that, though, is that is the perfect size for one person.
Yes.
But with those beers, you want to share them.
You do. And imagine this is the interesting point of that. The last 3 years, that wasn't an option. So anyone purchasing or releasing 750s or anything even close to that, like most of those bottles are probably still sitting uncracked in someone's cellar.
I mean, my basement still has a ton of bottles in it.
Yeah, I have a shit ton of bottles, and some of them intentional, some of them not so much. Some of them I'm like, okay, I know that I can drink this because I allocate specific time for it, but not everybody does. Now we're in a different world. It is, I would argue that it's a time where everyone sort of, it's the closest thing we've had to normal since 2019. So, you know, I think the sharing thing is back, but are people having bottle shares? That's probably the real question. Like,
I haven't heard anybody doing bottle shares. We used to do
Neither
bottle
have I.
shares all the time.
Yeah.
So like, and that's a very like, my partner, she went to France, and whenever she was there, she found a little bottle shop that had Conscient, and it was in a 375.
love that.
Mm.
And the 375 of Conscient is the perfect format for two people.
Or one.
The LCBO announced that they were bringing in, I'll pronounce the English right, Cantillon. They said they were going to bring it in, but it was in the 750 ml bottle.
Mm.
So, but like, hey, this is a fantastic beer. I love it. Let's buy some bottles. Because it's so big, we haven't touched them.
Yeah.
The SAQ did the same thing, and I have a bunch. I got 2 375 Cantillon, and I'm very happy I got 2 of those. And I have a bunch of Dre Fontaine, and I got some in 375, and I got some in 750. And the because you have to go in a lottery on the SAQ website, they have a lottery, and you get into that lottery and you win. And I'd like the ones that are always left are the 375 because for some reason the Quebec folks want the 750s, and I'm like, cool, man, I want the 375 because I'm good with that. And it was funny to me that like I align with you wholeheartedly that the smaller the better, but the big ones are the ones that sell out, and they're the ones that are crazy expensive. Like I think I got Homage and it was like $60, and I was like, fuck, you know.
Yeah, that goes back to our conversation that we had at the beginning. How Quebec is completely different than Ontario.
Very much so. It's a
right?
completely different culture. Every
time I go there, like my cousins are still having bottles that are 610, 650. And it's like, where's your 573 cans?
Yep.
Before cans.
Yeah. Even I got a mate that I trade with regularly in Montreal, and he always hits me up every single time anybody here does a barley wine or some sort of crazy stout. Oh, my camera froze. I'm going to swap that out. He's like, he gets it, sends it to me, and then I'll ship it to him. But he always wants the crazy double barrel barley wine or some shit like that. It's so funny. The things that like the only things he cares about are those beers.
Fred's a lunatic.
You know what I'm talking about. Yeah. Like he just, it's hilarious. And he messages me and then he goes and sends me, because I'm going to Miami next week. So he's like, sends me this American app where they have all these crazy launches called OZNR or something like that. OZNR. And like, they do these launches so you can like follow a brewery that you like. Oh, look at that. That kicked right in. Sick. Okay. I'm on the other side now. And, you buy these, you get this app and you get this notification, hey, they're selling these beers, and then you can go and buy it on this app, and then it's usually pick up or whatever. And they're all like, sell out in 5 minutes, like $40 US bourbon barrel aged stouts in Pappy barrels and all this crazy shit. I'm like, these Quebec, the things that specifically he doesn't care about, just like, yo, get me this new haze, but he just wants these fucking barley wines and stuff. It's so funny to me how consistently specific this dude's taste is. I think he represents Quebec. It's just really funny to me, and I like that. It's funny to me almost that Ontario seems to be the place that's releasing all of those right now. Maybe more than Quebec. I don't know. I haven't noticed as much.
I mean, for those things, it's probably things that people had in their barrels and it's like, oh shit, like we need to make room. Let's
Let's
get
do a
this out.
double thing.
Yeah.
And like slap it out. 18 months.
Yeah,
of this, boom, boom.
and like that's a whole other conversation that you could probably fill an entire podcast with. But I remember seeing something from these Beer Cruncher on Twitter and Beer Aficionado on on Instagram. The dude from Rev Brew in Chicago, who does a whole bunch of really interesting breakdowns on on marketing and sales and and things like that, and was talking about how during the pandemic, one of the things that a lot of places were doing was doing seller sell-offs and things like that from stuff that had been aging for X number of years, and that was kind of one of those ways to get money in the door and whatnot. It's there's a whole other marketing angle behind that strategy. It's a wild business that.
I didn't think of it like that.
And it's also too is very interesting about how people's purchasing have changed. This is not a COVID thing. This is and it's not a inflation thing either. But like people are less willing to spend money on a long-term aged sour. They would rather get the cheaper kettle sour with fruit. They're not looking to buy big double barrel barley wines or imperial stouts. They would rather get, the pastry stout. And even then, like from our experience, like we have a pastry stout that we've made 3 times now that we just stopped making because it stuck around for too long. It doesn't make sense for us to produce it. Also, I think that goes back to what we were talking about earlier, is we're a regional community brewery. And if you're making 11% stout, you're not walking home or you're not driving for sure.
Nope. But you'd be taking a bunch of them back, I would imagine. Like taking the packages, whether it's a bottle or can.
We haven't seen that move. That's not our bread and butter.
So that wouldn't be in London. I feel like that would move out here or in the GTA.
Yeah. And we
or would it? I don't know.
Oh. Yeah, like Akimbo is one of my favorite beers we make. And we did the executive decision of just not brewing it again this year.
What style
it
is
tastes like? It's a pastry stout that tastes like spatter cookies. People in Ontario call them macaroons. It's a coconut chocolate, vanilla, and it's delicious. And the beer tastes exactly like it. It's sticky. It's thick. It's got the coconut, and you want to drink it. But one.
Sounds awesome.
You don't want to.
Yeah, I was gonna say that sounds great, bro.
but like it took so long to move it that it took up real estate that it wasn't worth bringing back.
Understood. It's an interesting conundrum. I know we were just talking about kettle sours.
Yeah, let's fucking do it.
Look at that. Boom.
I don't have that one in front of me, but I want you guys to try that, and we're going to talk about that. That is,
I'm excited.
That's my baby right there.
So this one here is a milkshake kettle sour with pineapple, lime, coconut, vanilla, and our good friend Lactose. Nate and I are passionate lactose enthusiasts, so this is right up our alley. You were saying off camera, we're talking about this, Justin. Tell us about the beer in general. And
we were one of the first in Ontario to bring the kettle sour lactose fruit combo.
Love it.
We did this within a couple months of us opening, and we've just been rotating berries and whatever in it. I believe that Bellwoods themselves had released Milkshake before us, but for the sours, we were one of the first. I don't think many people have been doing the lactose since. I think we have a couple of people, like Merritt is doing it now.
Maybe Rorschach.
Rain and Grit might have released one.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people don't add the lactose in their sours in Ontario, which is weird. That's
one of the only other ones that I can think of is a local one here. Flora Hall does does what they call a series of sherbet sours.
Mhm.
But I think but I think you guys were were a little ahead of them in getting shook out before they were doing their sherbet series.
Like the whole point of this beer is I love desserts and I love jams.
Mm.
And so what we're doing this is we're trying to figure out how we can make it jammy, how can we make it taste like a dessert.
Right.
This one in particular is more of a cocktail focus with the lime and a coconut, going for the tropical notes. But we've done some that are bumbleberry, which is a very East Coast style. And a lot of people in Ontario make bumbleberry, but they always forget an ingredient.
Ooh.
You always need to have some type of stone fruit in it. You need to have apricot. You need to have peaches. It can't just be berries.
I've never heard of bumbleberry until I think Bellwoods did it. And if I'm not mistaken,
Bellwoods
is
has
it
made one. I think Blood Brothers made one.
They did one
Willibald
too?
made seltzer
Okay.
with one.
is it
But
blackberry, raspberry, blueberry?
yeah, it is any berry that you can put in it.
Oh, hence bumbleberry.
It's just
Okay.
a mixture of berries. There's another name.
But you got to have a stone fruit.
Or you have to include a stone fruit.
Okay.
Did not know that.
So we've done Pog, passion fruit, orange, guava. We've done tropical, which is pineapple, guava, mango. Blackberry is one of our favorites that we make. Just pure blackberry. Bumbleberry is my favorite, mostly because of the color. It's really hard to get blackberries and raspberries still. A crop was destroyed last year. So I believe there was in the Pacific Northwest, in South America, and in Europe. I forget which place had which, but one place had a drought, one place had a fire, and one place had flooding.
Oh gosh.
And so it would have cost the year previous to buy 20 liters of raspberries or blackberries, same difference. It would have cost us $60 for 20 liters of puree.
Holy shit.
Last year was costing us up to $360.
Fuck.
Right?
That is
And so that's why last year you didn't see
insane.
anybody produce anything with raspberries or blackberries.
People were telling me that raspberries were kind of wild last year, but no one told me it was that wild.
It was insane. And like I got a quote because I was like, all right, like what about, the concentrate? Because if I can get juice concentrate, you don't need to have the most beautiful berries. You just want the flavor. It's boom. And I got quoted $5,000.
Oh my God.
It's
Yeah,
insane.
it was ridiculous. Yeah, so that's why we've kind of toned back on the berries. We've been focusing more on like stone fruity style flavors.
You're doing the right thing.
And then this one here is the first time that we've included. Wait, does coconut count as a vegetable?
I reckon it does.
So it's the first time that we've included a coconut in this series. So Shook is our series that we include lactose. It always has vanilla because vanilla kind of amplifies fruit flavor, right?
Okay.
Lactose gives you the body, the texture that you want in these kinds of beers. You got the vanilla for the flavor, and you got the tartness from the beer. Everything just kind of melds and works together. I guess I'm gonna crack my fourth beer.
Oh yeah.
I'm drinking South Crest.
Tell us about that one while we're sipping this glorious pineapple, lime, coconut, vanilla, and lactose milkshake sour.
So I didn't believe that we could make a non-alcoholic beer that people would enjoy as much as we would.
Oh, nice.
So we made a 2.4% lager.
Hell yeah.
Okay.
And,
okay.
It's delicious. We call it your beer between beers.
I like that.
I like that.
I've had one of my friends, Nate, it's Matt from Box and Hop, Shasta Matty in Montreal. He calls himself the beer wizard the beer magician because he makes beer disappear. Because he just fucking crushes. He's a podcaster legend, such a good guy. And he told me that he tries to trick himself when he's getting on his rampages where he just can't stop. He tricks himself with non-alcoholic beer to be able, like the beer between beers, to be like between that. He's able to get that same feeling of cracking a can, pouring it into a glass, drinking it like everything else, and getting that same feeling whilst not making himself more sloshed, which I think was an intelligent move.
No, and I think that I'm super happy with how this beer turned out. It's 2.5%. It's crushable. It's got a bitterness, so that you feel like there's something there. We used a lot of maltodextrin, which is a sugar that the yeast can't ferment. And then we used a new technique to kind of make the batch bigger than it initially was. And we're just super happy with how it is. And then I know that all of us on the staff drink it.
I can see why. It must just be like the perfect sort of work beer, as they say, as you were saying earlier.
Well, it's definitely a lawnmower beer. Like we really should have we released it in January because we wanted to get the dry January people. Yeah. But we really should have released it in the summertime. But yeah, the beer you're drinking back.
Now. Yeah, I was going to say, bring it back.
We probably will. We definitely will. We have some more fun things coming out this summer that I'm really looking forward to. But the beer you're drinking right now, that was a fun one.
This is so good, dude.
There is a shit ton of coconut that we hand toasted ourselves. The amount of pineapple is interesting because you don't really get it as much into my taste buds. Maybe to you guys you're getting it, but whenever I'm tasting it, I find that I'm getting more of the lime character. Other people find that the coconut is more prominent and the lime is less prominent. It's such an interesting beer. The three flavors kind of hit you at different times while you're drinking it. Whereas if you take some of our other beers in this series, it's like, all right, so I got bumbleberry, but it's a wash of just berry smacking you across the face.
Right. You can't taste the differentiation.
Yeah. And so I mean, that's an interesting thing about this series. It's like you get to try things and be like, all right, that was fun. We're not going to do it again. Or sometimes it's like, hey, that worked really well. And like the blackberry, which I thought that I was going to find boring because it's only one fruit. I like using mixtures. I like the synergistic energies between them. The synergistic compounds, I should say, not energies, compounds. But the blackberry really stands well on its own.
Blackberry's a great one.
But the one you're drinking now, I find is super interesting. I think that the different
we can hear the chemist come out as you're describing that.
I'm loving it.
What are you guys thinking so far? What are you getting from it?
So one thing that I often find with pineapple, and even with pineapple forward hops, is that it sometimes comes out I'm very sensitive to it being overly acidic. If that if that comes out a lot, and whereas I am tasting pineapple a lot, and there is certainly some acidity to it here, which is to be expected, I don't find that it's overpowering the other flavors. Like you say, I do get the other flavors hitting you at different times, and I don't know that at this point, 4 beers in, that my palate is refined enough to be able to actually pinpoint when they're coming out, but the flavors are combining really, really nicely, and like I say, the acidity in the pineapple is not really overpowering anything. They this is like a tropical beach cocktail kind of kind of sour, exactly which I imagine is probably what you were going for.
Yeah, I mean, it is a sour beer, so I mean, we had that conversation earlier about Dreifontaine and Cantillon, and they are fantastic sour beers. They have a lot of fun to them and a lot of character, but you really have to think about the beer whenever you're drinking it.
Yep.
The way that we make our sour beers, whether it be this beer that you're drinking now or a Berliner Weiss or whatever, is we want them to be I don't want to say entry-level beer, but an accessible sour beer. And so we want it to be a beer that, yeah, there's tartness to it, but it's not going to strip the enamel from your teeth.
Mm-hmm.
We want this to be something that somebody that's never tried a sour beer before, it's like, oh, I've had those fruit, I've had those vegetables, I've had those spices. I'm interested in trying that.
And it's not going to scare them away.
Some do.
Oh, sure.
But to a lot of people though is we try to choose fruits that people recognize. We have done fruits, soursop, lulo. They're fruits that people don't recognize right away.
Yeah, it's a little more exotic.
But we've done those after we've done so many of them that people see the brand name, recognize it, and are like, I will give this a chance.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Nice.
I heard you say soursop. I did see that in on the Untapped line up there. That is a phenomenal fruit for this style, like particularly with that lactose backbone. Do they all have lactose in it? I guess it's milkshake sour, right? Vanilla and lactose is guaranteed.
The Shook series, we did start a non-lactose sour, so we use maltodextrin in that one, so that we do have a vegan option.
That's cool.
We don't do that one as much, but that is yeah. These sour beers are so interesting. They've really been a wave. It's kind of like I think seltzer's a lot more of a peak in a valley. When we started making these, our Shook series accounted for 35 to 45% of our sales.
Wow.
No shit.
It now makes
Team
up 8.
lactose. Wow. What happened?
I think that people during COVID wanted something that is easily digestible, not digestible in the sense of like gut, but in the sense of I don't have to think about it. And I think that's where your lager comes in. That's where your pale ale comes in.
I think that's a really good point. Because if you're seeing that on the numbers, like I've heard that qualitatively from just talking to people. So you're seeing that literally in the numbers, that's where people are sort of moving towards.
And I mean, like, we love brewing these beers because they're a challenge. I mean, sometimes we don't want a challenge, but it's a lot of fun to challenge ourselves every once in a while. And the Shook series is possibly one of our more challenging brews to do. It's a 2 to 3 day long process, depending on if we're doing a single or double batch. Getting a pH right beforehand, getting the pH right afterhand so it doesn't strip your enamel. There's so much fun to make. And it's very interesting to see the shift in our customers' better.
I just find it really interesting that this type of beer would be the one that would drop so much. But there's been like I was talking, Nate, I don't know if it was us talking about, I was talking to someone about this like this week. We've talked about it in the past where like maybe people have sort of like, you know, like the typical craft beer consumer is super promiscuous. They would try every beer from every brewery, always want the newest thing. And then maybe over COVID in the beginning, at least the first year probably, that was amplified because people were excited as hell. And that was the most exciting thing in life, was to get the fresh, new, fun beer. And then as time went on, it almost seemed like people were sort of leaning into sort of maybe like reliable favorites, such as Cove and Sunburst. Exactly what you're saying. You know, Crispies, Pales, maybe IPAs in some cases, and just things that you could get regularly that were, you knew what it was going to be. You didn't have to, like you said, didn't have to think about it too much. And that's where a lot of people went. It was almost like it was like a pendulum swing back from that sort of consistent chase of what's new and such.
Yeah, we found that we don't get the what's new crowd.
Okay.
We always wanted to be that. And so we've started focusing on what we know we make good.
Right.
Let's make it better.
How do you feel about that?
I mean, like, I got into this because I love experimentation. I love trying new things. And I want to constantly be pushing the envelope on things. And it kind of saddens me that that's not the way that things are, but I understand why that's the case. And I'm happy that people are going for our lagers because I think they're tasty. I'm happy that people are going for a pale ale because I think it's what I want to drink. And so it allows me to drink beers that while I do like drinking sour beers, it's not always the first beer I'm reaching for.
Yep.
Which means that I get to always have fresh Cove, fresh Dashboard, and fresh Sunburst.
I like that. So even, I know you were saying that you typically weren't, like, were you ever that beer guy that was like chasing new stuff, or that was not really ever something you did?
I was too lazy for that.
I genuinely respect that.
But like I've never gone and camped overnight for beer releases.
Gotcha.
I've been lucky to have friends that have had access to things. I mean, like, I've had a bottle of Hunupu, and that was delicious, and I would love to have that more often, but I'm not going to be drinking Hunupu very often. I've been lucky that I can travel down and visit friends in New York and visit Hudson Valley. One of our lead bartenders used to work there for a number of years, and so we have a good hookup for there. I love the fact that we could just cross the border now and go to
What, like Buffalo and stuff? Or?
Finger Lakes.
Oh,
the Finger
other
Lakes
half.
and go to other half. Well,
Other
now
half.
they're even in Buffalo.
Yep, I went to both
Right.
a few weeks ago.
Holmes is over in
Ann Arbor.
Ann Arbor.
Yeah.
I did go to a beer release once, and that was for Jolly Pumpkin's La Roja. Right? And that's not a beer people would go for a beer release anymore.
No, not anymore.
I think that I am not the person that will go to those styles of beer releases, which maybe is why that we don't have those kind of things at our place. But I've been lucky that I've had friends and acquaintances that would share things with me.
Right.
And I've been able to experience things. So while I don't go for the beer release, I love different beers, and I'm always searching out different breweries and trying different brands whenever I'm in other cities.
Okay.
And we choose our vacations based on that.
As do we. I feel you on that.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Right?
So
Nobody wants to go to a city with bad beer. You got to have at least one place.
I always feel like there's not even that many places, like, at least if you're Canada's getting there, but say, like, you know, even planning the trip down to Miami, I'm like, all right, we're gonna try and make it like 3 days of about 8 hours each. Like, which cities could we stop in that we know have fire beer? So I even tried ChatGPT, speaking of that, because we were talking about it earlier, and it kept fucking with me. It kept giving me 7-day trips. I'm like, bro, give me 3 days, 2 nights in 2 different beers, and it just wouldn't do it. It was hilarious. It just, like, it actually kind of pissed me off. So I just figured it out. I just kept doing Google Maps, like Hamilton to like Philly, Hamilton to DC, Hamilton to blah, blah, blah. And just kept finding out, okay, that day, 8 hours, boom, next day. And just kept trying to like map it out around that. But yeah, I feel like a lot of beer people do plan that out. And even if it's not even the place you stay overnight, it's a place you're going right past on the way somewhere else that you can zip in.
It's not that hard.
I love being able, we went to Chicago right before COVID. If you go to Chicago, do the architecture tour. It is worth it. It's a bit of money per person. Completely worth it. Chicago.
I'll second that. It's 100% worth it.
But on the way, it's like, well, you know, let's hit up Kalamazoo. And then, hey, we're in Kalamazoo. Let's hit up Transient, which is half an hour away, 45 minutes away. All right, we're hitting there. Well, let's hit up Three Floyds because it's on the way. So, like, these are all places that it's like, oh shit, I've heard about these places. I need to go.
Yep.
And the lucky thing is that we always travel in the middle of the week. And so it's always dead and we get the good stuff.
That's the time to go.
Just no lines. Yeah.
Yeah, weekends are the worst. But yeah, it's not always like the I know what you're saying though. I guess the reason we're talking about it was saying you thought initially that you would get those hype people, but it's like I guess it's sort of like Storm State has sort of created its own personality, its own beast as to what it is and who it attracts. And I guess that's, you go into a business with an idea and then reality says, no, well, this is more what it is. And it sounds like it's more in line with who you are actually as a human.
Yeah. And I mean, like, I'm cool with that.
I think there's nothing wrong with that. There's not everyone has to be hype, and like, who says hype lasts forever?
Yeah. And I mean, like, I love the fact that I can go in there at noon and I know the person that's sitting at the bar. And I can go in there at 5 o'clock and it'll be somebody different. And I know that person sitting at the bar. And I can go in there at 8 o'clock and I will know that person sitting at the table. Right? It is a community. And I think that that's what we're missing for the last couple of years is people worried about going out. Now that people are out, people want to talk. People want to chat. People want to have a good time. And people want to be friendly.
Yep.
And I think that that's what we've always wanted to be, was a place that you wanted to explore, try new beers, which is why we, like I said, we have 16 on tap. But you can have a conversation with the bartender.
That's dope, man. And I feel like that's valuable. Particularly, it sounds like it's exactly what London needs. You've got a pretty unique beer scene out there. There's a lot of different stuff happening. That sounds like you're filling that exact niche.
And I think that is what a lot of places are going to move towards. In the sense that you have to find your niche.
Yeah.
Is not everybody is going to be an Anderson's. Not everybody is going to be a beer lab. Not everybody is going to be, you need to find what you are, make sure you're comfortable with it, and embrace it.
Yep.
And that's an important message. And not,
because you can't be everything.
No, you can't be everything to everyone. And everyone's sort of often chasing that sort of dragon of being that, it hype brewery. But like you said, every brewery that I've, Nate and I have spoken to that are that never intended to be that and didn't do anything to be that. They just did what they did and it happened to work out that way. And like I said, that the cards fell where they may type of shit. And that's okay. And that's cool because everyone has their place. And if everyone was a hype brewery, then there is no hype breweries. And,
it's a good way of putting it.
Yeah. And then some people detest hype breweries. I know some people who genuinely do. And there's some very vocal people in craft beer, just, people who post online that aren't into it. They push against it. They're the purist types. Cool. No worries. So there's like, there's just going to be enough for everybody. And there's like, I don't know, Nate, you could probably echo this, but I find that like the breweries that do what you're describing would sort of like brew the beers that you want to drink in the way that you want to do it. That's true. Just authenticity, top to bottom. They work consistently.
Well, yeah. I will say though, that we do stupid shit.
I love stupid shit.
I mean, like I think that we were the first brewery to have a slushy machine.
Really?
In Ontario.
That's a big call.
Oh dang!
I will stand by it. We did that in summer 2020.
That is a strong stance, and I'm here for it.
Yeah,
I like that.
So we do that. I think that the Shook series, like we were one of the first ones to do that, and I'm super proud with how that series has evolved over time. And while our beers, such as our lager, such as our pale ale, is what pays for the bills, it allows us to do stupid shit like that. We have a couple of beers coming down the pipeline that are dumb, and we're looking forward to it. And then we also have, I think there's one coming out in 2 weeks that we're super excited for, and we're all just like, this is the stupidest thing ever.
Oh God!
And
me.
then we
Oh
have
man,
others.
I'm already amped for that. Just based on that description
Let's
alone.
go.
I think there's gonna be like 5 spices in it. There's carrot in it. Like, we're going for a carrot cake beer.
Nice.
But there's a couple extra components that you'll be happy about. I'm gonna keep my lips sealed on that one.
We can talk off
But,
air about that.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. But like at the same time, like, we're looking to bring back some of the classics. And this goes back to our conversation about the Berliner Weiss, about how that moves on tap but doesn't move in cans. We're already expecting that to be the case with some of these beers. So like, we're thinking that we want to do what's everybody's favorite. I assume we have a broad statement, but like, one of my favorite beers is Kronenbourg.
Okay.
And we've never done that. And it's like, well, everybody likes Shock Top. They say they don't, but everybody likes Shock Top. Like, everybody loves Belgian or Blue Moon, depending on where you live. Like, and so we're gonna bring back beers like that. And like, English Bitter is another one that we love to brew. And we brew that.
Yeah.
We're probably going to bring it back more and more, just because it's a 4.5% beer that you can just crush.
A caramel roasty gorgeousness.
Yeah. Right. Like, and if we could move it, we'd probably brew more milds, because sometimes you need a 3%. But that's why we brewed the 2% lager.
There you go.
Indeed.
Oatmeal stout is. So I mean, like, we do the stupid shit. Like, I mean, we had Jello shots for St. Patty's Day.
Amazing.
I respect it. Was there beer in the Jello shots, or was it just OG?
No, there wasn't. No? Yeah, we have a Tide House license, so we can have other alcohols on premise.
Imagine having this specific shook in a Jello shot.
Oh, that'd be dope.
That would work, man. So that would work.
Our slush machine. That's what we do. Is we take these beers, but then we'll throw other stuff in it. So like, if we had like our Pasture Guava beer, it's like, all right, what else is tropical? We'll add that to it in the slush machine.
Okay. Fuck, man. We have to go to London.
So like, our slush machine is how we experiment every week is a new recipe. My favorite one was blue raspberry. That was awesome.
Oof,
I love that.
I like that you got this balance. Sorry, Nate, go.
Yeah. No, I was just going to say the same thing. I love that balance, because, like you're saying, like, you know, like you guys like to have fun with it, like with the stupid shit, and we're so here for that. And it's so funny to me to hear you kind of talk about Sunburst and Cove as like beers that pay the bills, but and I think Cee will back me up on this, but like those were the beers that we crushed the fastest on on this. Like, there was,
they were gone.
Like, we're so here for a money pale ale, and and that Pils is
every time
absolute gold.
Mm-hmm.
And to think of those as as the ones that pay, the ones that pay the bills, but like, those are really fucking good beers, man.
Yeah, dude.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I appreciate it. But yeah, like, when I say we do stupid shit, the problem with those things is people don't buy them over and over again. Right?
That's unfortunate.
People will come in and have one of them, and then they'll go back to their pale ale, or they'll go back to their lager.
Yeah. So and that's fair. That's fair.
If you use like the slushy as an example, like, you have people that come in every weekend, and the first thing they have is that slushy, and then they'll have 2 beers. But
to be fair, that's probably that's probably what I would do, like what I would do there as well.
Yeah, because you couldn't drink them all day. It'd be like a lot. Because I guess that's
Well, we do sell them to go. So if you want to take your slushy home, you can do that too.
oh, see, there you go. So it actually would be better to crush some Coves and Sunburst and stuff and have some other fun stuff on tap and then take a nice extra large, if you can get sizes, of the old slushy.
Yeah, we have it in like a bladder. It's a frozen
Oh,
bladder.
yo.
So it's like
There
a
you
Capri
go.
Sun for adults.
Oh, I love that. Cops wouldn't even know. I'm joking.
Oh, I'm
Be
not saying
responsible.
that. Yeah,
Be
sealed.
responsible.
It's sealed, so you're
No,
really
you drink
not
it
very
in.
sweaty.
Yeah, you don't drink it in the streets of London. You drink it in the comfort of your own home.
Exactly.
Once you get back there safely. I love it. No, it's interesting though, hearing like that balance of the crazy stuff with the Nate and I have always been into the, I don't know, we always joke and call like innovation type of thing, like just fun ass beers that the purists tend to not like, but we equally love the purist stuff. Like, you know, we will lose our shit obviously over Cove and Sunburst right now. Well, Cove specifically is a more purist type of beer. Like that, it's so cool to see a brewery that can embrace both sides of that, because I would probably say it's not that common. People typically lean into one or the other. Like be like, hey, we do fun, crazy shit, or nah, man, we do like traditional stuff. But it seems like you guys are, you know, doing whatever the hell pleases you.
I'm not going to say that we're all over the place and whatnot, but it feels like from an outsider's perspective that we are.
Mm-hmm.
But what we're doing is going back to the community aspect of, hey, it's Saturday. What do you want to do? I want to grab a beer. I don't know if I want a beer. Do you want a slushie? Yeah, I want a slushie. Like, and then
Well,
because we have a Tide House license, we are also able to have. So Hemans is a strawberry producer in town, but they make amazing ciders, and so we have that on tap. And we started innovating with a cocktail on draft, and so we have cocktails on draft.
Wow.
And so
That's fun.
we have product, and then whenever I'm not feeling lazy, we'll also make like non-alcoholic seltzers. So we tend to do strawberry basil or blueberry lime or stuff like that. And so it's something else for people to enjoy. That doesn't always have to be beer. When while we are a brewery that love beer, we recognize that not everybody does.
Mm.
Yeah. So you guys just know you guys just know your market.
We like to pretend that we do.
I don't even know if you're pretending in any shape or form. It sounds like you're really on top of that shit, and you're being a humble man.
You're being humble, but I think you know your market pretty well.
It's cool though. It's cool to hear like how sort of authentically you do know that, and that you're catering towards that, and you try stuff, and you're like, oh, okay, we learned that now we should probably do this instead. I think that's great. That's like phenomenal. And even just, you know, like what we've had today is a nice little like summary. And you could argue that what we've had tonight technically is probably in the realm of hype, from a, you know, a nice, like, you know, traditional pills, which happens to some reason be in the hype world, to a beautiful pale and the IPA, and then now a milkshake sour, you know, but then you equally do all the other stuff. It's just cool to see that, like, you can do everything type of thing. Well, I won't say everything, but, you know, you can do the things that we're in, you know, you can do this type of stuff, but you can also do the Irish red, the blonde that's now with a lager yeast, and all these other fun, like, you know, more that speak to this audience, that speak to that audience, without feel like you just mentioned, it doesn't feel all over the place to me in any shape or form. It feels very thoughtful and considered, you know?
Yeah. And I think that is, I mean, obviously I like to think that I'm steering the ship, but I get a lot of feedback from everybody that works at the brewery. Mm-hmm. It is not a one-man show. Diana is our head brewer, and she shoots down a lot of my ideas because they're dumb, but she comes up with other ideas in its place. Courtney is another good example of somebody who will look at an idea and think, hey, we need to try this. How can we get this to work? And then Paul, who does the designs, he comes up with fantastic ideas as well. And I haven't mentioned any of our front of house staff, but they all come up with fantastic ideas as well. So it is not a one-man show, definitely.
I love
you
that.
got to take input where you can.
That's a good point.
I mean,
it's all about the team.
I think that stagnation is going to be the death of companies. And I'm not saying that you need to innovate. You don't need to always be new. But I think that you need to learn to roll with the punches, see what works, see what sticks, and move forward from there.
Yep.
It's great advice. Sage advice, some might say.
Indeed.
Dude.
Yeah, don't say
this is awesome. Was there anything else, boys, that we wanted to make sure we cover before we wrap her up? I feel like we got into some like really interesting conversations this evening. This was like really fun. Like I really enjoyed this.
Yeah, I can't think of anything. I mean, like, yeah.
Is there anything coming up that people need to know about? You know, if there are any like launches or events, or I know we're coming into we're in spring.
I think that goes into like the whole like we've kind of like moved away from doing like special release, and it's like, hey, we're making some sweet beers, come and drink them.
Right.
So we're going to be releasing new beers every 3 weeks. We're going to be always trying to innovate and push the boundaries. We're going to be producing the same stuff, but we're also going to we always do events and fun things like that. Like we've got trivia every Thursday. We've got events happening on, like, because we're a community pub, like we need to have it community focused.
And you've got a 14% barley wine coming out in 750 ml bottles in
exactly
months, right?
Yeah. Triple barrel aged.
Triple barrel. Quebec.
Yeah.
Get your proxies ready. It's about to be a problem in London.
Yeah. No, I think the biggest thing I want to push right now is probably like the beer that you guys drank last was the beer that is we have some money going towards the women's shelter in town.
Oh, Immersion right here.
Yeah.
Yep, there we are. That's the
I'm
one.
drinking too much of that, and I hope that people are enjoying it as much as I am.
Man, all of these were fantastic. Genuinely, like I said, I got 4 empty glasses next to me, and more times we would, we couldn't help ourselves. And I feel like this is a fantastic sign. I'm extremely impressed with everything you guys are doing, dude. Like I'd always heard great things. I just hadn't got out to London. I've been in Montreal for the longest time, so being able to sort of chat to you and try all these beers and hear the story and understand sort of where you guys are coming from, I feel like I have a really good understanding of who Storm State is. And I'm just super impressed. And I feel like this explains sort of anything I've ever heard about you guys. I'm like, yeah, this is what the fuck they're talking about. It's fantastic. You're hitting like you got a very unique sort of take on beer and position in the market where you're able to do something as fire as these beers, but also as traditional as the other stuff. So it's great, man. I love to hear it, and I'm excited to get out there. Hopefully, Nate is from Burlington, so Nate gets out, and whenever he's out in this side of town, we always make sure we get out somewhere. So this summer, we're trying to hit as many places because we've been talking to a lot of breweries. We're like, all right, we have a lot of work to do. Gonna go see a bunch of people, check out a bunch of spots. So I'm genuinely excited to get out there, dude. This is crazy.
Well, I hope you come down. I'm almost always there.
Yeah.
So definitely hit us up. Yeah, no, we're on one of the main drags in the city. So it's pretty easy to find. And we're only a 5-minute drive, 15-minute walk downtown. We're close to 401. Yeah.
So it's perfect. Good place for a crawl to check out.
And also we got fantastic burgers. I don't think I mentioned that.
No, tell us about the burgers.
We got a gentleman doing smash burgers out of our garage right now.
Woo.
And
there you go.
They are some of I think they're the best in the city. I'll say that.
I think you should boldly say that. Confidently.
I will say that.
There you go.
Dan, Your burgers are the best in the city.
There we go. Shout outs to Dan.
I have no reason not to believe you, sir. You look trustworthy to me. That mustache screams trust. That's awesome. There's nothing better than a beer and a burger. What more do you need?
Exactly.
And some sunshine in London, Ontario. God damn it. Dude, this is awesome. Justin, thank you so much for hanging out, man. This has been a lot of fun. Really appreciate you, man. This is great. I hope everyone took a lot of it.
Me on. I really appreciate it. Listened to a bunch of your stuff, so it's great to actually get to meet you guys.
Yeah, likewise, man. And I'm genuinely excited to get down. So we'll absolutely keep in touch because, like I said, Nate and I are really trying to get to as many places this summer as possible. God damn it.
Yeah, this has been an absolute genuine pleasure.
Stick around on the call. We're going to wrap everything up on the thing. And when we end it, we can chat off air a little bit. But thank you again for hanging out. Let's get the thumbnail. I'm going to take a screenshot of this.
Let's
Do you
do
want to
that.
hold up some cans? Ooh, yeah. Oh, there we go. That's always the thing. There we go.
Oh, which way am I turning it? Right?
That's it. Perfect.
There we go.
You ready? Oh, that is stunning, boys. Justin, for everyone wanting to know, where can they find Stormstayed online and in person?
So we're at stormstayed.com. We're at Stormstayed on Instagram. That's where we post everything, whether it be upcoming events, whether it be burgers, whether it be beer releases. Check Instagram first. By far, that is our most used platform, and it's a platform that we use the most to see what other places are doing. We're at 169 Warncliffe Road South, which is right across from Harvey's, but it's an easy way to tell you how to get there.
There's no need to go to Harvey's, though, because they got the best smash burgers in the city. That's all I'm saying.
Exactly. Smash burgers are every Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
Don't come on Wednesdays.
No, and you can find some of our beer at your local LCBO.
And if you don't see it there, what you're going to do is you're going to say, "Hi, I'd like to request some Stormstayed in this motherfucker right now."
Please
Sir
do
or
right,
madam, please. And
yeah,
they will make sure that happens. Glorious, Justin, you're a legend. Nathaniel, where can everyone find you, sir?
You can find me everywhere at NathanDoesBeer or right here co-hosting BAOS podcast.
Damn right they can. And everyone, thank you so much for watching and listening. If you enjoyed the episode, smash the thumbs up, hit subscribe below, hit the notification bell, Nathaniel.
Ding.
So you know when the new episodes drop. Follow us everywhere at BOS Podcast. We drop every Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern for the video. We drop the audio in the morning so the humans who are commuting will have something fun and new to listen to. If you're on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, throw us a 5-star review. We have something called the High Season Network. So that is like our company that has BOS Podcasts and our other podcast called Bad Habits. We have it all under this one thing on Apple Podcasts. I got that up yesterday, so that's kind of cool. So go check that out. Make sure you go check out Stormstayed. We'll see you guys in the next episode. Get it in you.
Cheers.